Propriety, noun, conformity to established standards of behavior or manner, suitability, righteousness, or justice. See etiquette. Good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman, live from New York City. And tonight we are going to be doing a 50th anniversary commentary for Peter Bogdanovich's classic comedy, What's Up, Doc?, starring Ryan O'Neal and Barbra Streisand. And right after we finish What's Up, Doc?, we will be doing another audio commentary for Peter Bogdanovich's debut film, Targets, from 1968. And yes, even in spite of the tragic events today that happened in Buffalo, New York, we are absolutely going to be still doing this commentary on Targets. And there's going to be a lot to talk about when we get to that. But for now, we need to do a comedy. We need to have some fun, have some laughs, and relax a little bit as we watch What's Up, Doc? Now, this was Peter Bogdanovich made this movie right after the Last Picture Show. And part of the reason why I wanted to do What's Up, Doc? Is because Peter unfortunately passed away the first week of January this year. He was, I believe he was 85 years old, lived a very long life. And we'll be talking about his career as the movie goes along, as well as the insanely good cast that this movie has at its core. I mean, so many great character actors and familiar faces, and also a lot of great musical accompaniments, and just an overall good time. And I've only seen What's Up, Doc? A few times before doing this commentary, and I had to rewatch it a couple more times because it's a crazy screwball comedy. And even on refreshing myself with it, I mean, I realize that you can get really confused if you don't pay attention and everything. But at any rate, I am paused at the Warner Brothers logo, or rather just before the Warner Brothers logo, because we hear Barbra Streisand humming and singing Cole Porter here for the opening sequence. So I'll give everybody in the chat, or anybody that's watching, just maybe 30 more seconds, and we will go ahead and get started here. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot to talk about with What's Up, Doc? Tonight, because to be perfectly honest, this is not my favorite Peter Bogdanovich movie. As a matter of fact, I mean, there's many other movies that he made that I prefer over this film. And this is, I don't want to say middle of the road. I think it's a good, solid screwball comedy. And it's absolutely a love letter to those films from the 1930s. But it's also, as we will soon discover, based on the title and based on some other little ticks here and there, it's also a tribute to the Warner Brothers cartoons of the 1940s and 50s, featuring, of course, that wascally wabbit Bugs Bunny. So at any rate, I am paused, and we should be hearing Barbra Streisand humming as you press play. And before I press play, let me say hi to John in the chat, bringing up Barbara. When that funny girl outsmarts absent-minded Professor Ryan, this could be the Last Picture Show. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. So, at any rate, I mean, glad you can come in, John. It's great to see you. And anybody else that comes in, I'll be sure to give them the timestamp. But let's go ahead and get started. Countdown of 3, 2, 1, and play. And of course, we hear Barbra Streisand singing At Words Poetic, this old Cole Porter ditty called It's the Top. Very unusual title sequence, at least for Warner Brothers. It's a beautiful book. And a lot of times when they do movies with these books, is that they're usually adaptations of famous books. I mean, last night I was talking about Jane Eyre very briefly from 1944, or 2 nights ago I was talking about Jane Eyre, directed by and I've already lost my Robert Stevenson, yes, from 1944. And they start out with a book, and it's usually with adaptations when they do that. But this is actually very colorful and different, particularly for this kind of comedy. Co-starring Kenneth Mars and Austin Pendleton, 2 very talented actors we will talk about in depth here as it goes along. Sorrel Book Yeah, I mean, every time I see the name Sorrel Book, I mean, you always think of Boss Hogg from Dukes of Hazzard, because that's what he's most famous for. And of course, introducing Madeline Kahn, the great comedienne Madeline Kahn, absolutely. John Hillerman, Randy Quaid, M. Emmett Walsh. Great list of character actors here, and there's also a few other familiar faces in this opening title sequence as well. Verna Fields serves the editor. She later won the Oscar for Jaws, and she also worked on Targets as well. She's also in the credit for Targets, where she employs some great sound effects. But here again, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that after What's Up, Doc is finished. Oh, production aide Neil Canton. You know what? I did not notice that credit, because Neil Canton actually co-produced the Back to the Future trilogy when he was working with Universal. And assistant to the producer Frank Marshall, that is indeed the very famous producer and director Frank Marshall, who worked with Steven Spielberg for many years. He married Kathleen Kennedy, who is now the head of Lucasfilm, that runs Star Wars and everything. Music arranged and conducted by Artie Butler. Director of photography, Laszlo Kovacs. We'll be talking about him too, because he also shot Targets for Peter Bogdanovich. And Polly Platt, the production designer, is, of course, Peter's ex-wife, who he left when he fell in love with his leading lady, Sybil Shepherd, from Last Picture Show. And directed and produced by Peter Bogdanovich. Yes, the very late Peter Bogdanovich. He's not one of my favorite filmmakers, but I cannot deny that he's made some masterpieces in his career. I personally don't think What's Up, Doc is one of them, but it was certainly very popular with audiences in 1972. I believe it had like a $6 or $7 million budget, and it made about $66 million. It was one of the top hits of 1972. Now, here we open up on one of my favorite character actors. This is Michael Murphy. And he's famous for collaborating with Robert Altman on a lot of movies. He was in, right before this, he did MASH and Brewster McCloud and McCabe and Mrs. Miller. However, as John is very well aware, he's also the villain in a 1984 film called Cloak and Dagger, which I liked how you dubbed that the boy who knew too much, because yes, that's essentially what it is. It's a Hitchcock film made for kids, directed by a protege of Hitchcock. But anyway, if you want to listen to, if you want to learn about Cloak and Dagger, I did a audio commentary on that last year. And I'm actually pleased to tell everyone right now that Cloak and Dagger is going to be released on a 4K Blu-ray by Vinegar Syndrome over halfway Black Friday, which will be at the very end of the month. And this is Ryan O'Neal and Madeline Kahn. Yes. Madeline Kahn, I adore Madeline Kahn. I mean, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, and of course she also starred in Paper Moon, which was the movie that Peter Bogdanovich followed up with. Both Ryan O'Neal and Madeline Kahn were both in Paper Moon, as a matter of fact. Just 1 second here. And among the other films that Michael Murphy did, he was also in The Front with Woody Allen, Manhattan, and Cloak and Dagger, as I mentioned, and also one of Robert Altman's most underrated movies, which was made for television, which is The Caine Mutiny Court Martial, which is another version of the Caine Mutiny that came out in the 1950s. But I think he's most well known to audiences playing the mayor in Batman Returns. And he's still with us. He just turned 84 years old just last week. And this is Barbra Streisand, of course, the very famous singer. Now, I don't know if I can't quite call myself a Barbra Streisand fan, because, look, she won the Oscar for Funny Girl, although that was barely happened because she actually tied with Katharine Hepburn, who won for The Lion and Winner, and she won that in 1968. And the movies that she made in the 1970s, she made some very interesting ones, including Up the Sandbox, which came out in December of 72, which I actually prefer over What's Up, Doc. In fact, it's pretty amazing because even though I'm not the biggest Barbra fan, I cannot deny that she is extremely talented. I mean, she knows how to sing, she knows how to act, she knows how to direct. I mean, she's only directed 3 films, and yet all 3 films are absolutely worth watching. I mean, she did Yentl in 1983, The Prince of Tides in 1990 with Nick Nolte, and then also The Mirror Has Two Faces in 1996. However, my personal favorite Barbra Andy is, without a doubt, a movie she made in 1987 with Richard Dreyfuss called Nuts. And in this movie, she didn't direct this movie. This was directed by Martin Ritt. It's essentially about a high-class prostitute in New York City who is accused of manslaughter of her last client, played by Leslie Nielsen, of all people. In fact, I even mentioned last night during my Naked Gun 33 1/3 commentary that it's quite jarring to see Leslie Nielsen in such a brutal, villainous role where he essentially abused and was about to rape Barbra Streisand, and she had to kill him in self-defense. That is my favorite Barbra Streisand film. So much so, I believe I would have given her the Oscar for that movie instead of Cher in Moonstruck. But I first saw What's Up, Doc. I bought a 4-film Barbra Streisand box set, which included not only Nuts, but also What's Up, Doc, Up the Sandbox, which I also watched for the first time, as well as the very terrible 1979 film, The Main Event, which reunited her with Ryan O'Neal. Now, this is a classic screwball comedy presence, which it involves, suitcases that all look alike, and they all end up in different places and with different owners. And here again, I mean, when I first saw this movie, I actually got a bit confused about all the shenanigans, who got what suitcase and who didn't get the other suitcase and everything. But there's supposed to be, in this movie, there's actually a quartet of suitcases. One which Ryan O'Neal has, even though he's a musicologist, he has a bag full of igneous tambula rocks, which have certain musical properties. There is a Mr. Smith who has a bag containing top secret government papers, which he obtained illegally. And he's followed by the equally mysterious Mr. Jones, a government agent on a mission to recover the documents. And then there's a wealthy socialite called Mrs. Van Hoskins, who has a bag containing a sizable collection of valuable jewels. Obviously, that's going to be the target of some hotel employees that want to steal it. And then Judy's bag is filled with her clothing and a large dictionary. Because the whole joke with Barbra Streisand's character in this movie is that while she never graduated from college, she absorbed so much when she was in that she almost becomes a kind of an academic, and she has a dictionary that she practically reads every day and learns different words. I mean, she's very smart, but the weird thing about her character, and look, if I saw this film in 1972, I probably would have fallen in love with Barbra Streisand as much as everybody else. But I find her equally annoying and delightful in this movie. And it's kind of hard to explain because, I mean, she's a troublemaker. And the thing is that I kind of, I kind of would have preferred to stay with Madeline Kahn, to be honest. I mean, even though she's obviously a lot more frumpy than Barbara is, but we're watching What's Up, Doc. We're closing in on the 11-minute mark here. So what was the inspiration for What's Up, Doc? Well, as I said before, it has a dual inspiration. But it really all triggered when Barbra Streisand wanted to work with Peter Bogdanovich. I mean, after the massive success of Bogdanovich's The Last Picture Show, which came out in 1971. It was filmed in black and white, and it's about these, these football players in the small Texas town in the 40s, based on the famous novel. And I was going to do a commentary for that last year, but I decided to pass on it only because I got halfway through the book and I said to myself, you know what? I'm not liking this. I mean, the movie has its merits, no question, but it's far from my favorite Peter Bogdanovich movie, and I've seen practically all of them, aside from a few others, the one I heard he made with Rob Lowe in the 1980s called Illegally Yours, which I heard is atrocious. My personal favorite Peter Bogdanovich movie is the comedy Noises Off from 1992, which is based on a very famous play, and it's got an all-star cast. I mean, Michael Caine and John Ritter and Christopher Reeve and Mary Lou Henner. Wonderful cast, and probably one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I mean, I consider it screamingly funny. I mean, with What's Up, Doc, I consider this a comedy that's moderately funny, but Noises Off, I think, goes to, different levels. And Peter Bogdanovich did a hell of a job directing that. I mean, considering the fact that the entire movie is set on a stage and involves a lot of slamming doors and, plates of sardines and everything. Oh, yeah, Carol Burnett's also in it. But this was made very early in Peter's career when he still had a lot of clout in Hollywood. But the idea was that Barbra Streisand just wanted to work with him. And so Warner Brothers went to Peter Bogdanovich and said, well, look, Barbara wants to work with you. I mean, what do you think you can do? And he said, well, you know what? Maybe we could do a screwball comedy. I mean, remember those? I mean, I think on the poster it even said, hey, it's one of those screwball comedies. Remember those from the 1930s, like Bringing Up Baby? And my personal favorite, though, from the 30s screwball comedies is, of course, Libeled Lady, which has a magnificent quartet of actors in one of the most ridiculous plots of the 1930s. Matter of fact, I should, just because this is a movie that celebrates screwball comedies, I should share Libeled Lady with you because it has Jean Harlow, William Powell, Myrna Loy, and Spencer Tracy. And it's basically this wealthy woman is falsely accused of breaking up a marriage, and she sues this newspaper for like $5 million for libel. And so the managing editor of the paper, in desperation, turns to a former reporter and a suave ladies' man to help out. And basically, the ladies' man's scheme is to maneuver Connie into being alone with him so his wife shows up and so that the suit will have to be dropped. And Jean Harlow and William Powell and Myrna Loy and Spencer Tracy, they are working at top steam with that movie. And it was later remade as Easy to Wed in 1946 with Keenan Wynn and Esther Williams. And of course, all these screwball elements come into play. I mean, Barbara keeps ripping Ryan O'Neal's clothes, and he goes up the escalator the wrong way just to get away from her and everything. Lots of comic silliness ensues. But this was indeed Madeline Kahn's very first movie, which is extraordinary because she became one of the most sought after and popular comedians of the early 1970s. After this, of course, she did Paper Moon and Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. And she was also in Peter Bogdanovich's massive musical bomb from 1975 called Long Last Love, which has a lot of Cole Porter music and everything. I personally have never seen it, but and it's got somewhat of a cult resurrection in the past 10 years, because what happened is that the critics basically, slaughtered it in 1975. They thought it was one of the worst movies they'd ever seen. In fact, it was even published in a book, saying it was one of the worst that Hollywood had ever produced. What? Yeah, what are you doing? Oh, just looking for my key. Oh yeah, sure, sure. There are only three reactions here, and all three became preoccupied by the switch cases and why the owners don't check their own bags. I think that fatigues the general craziness of the scenario. Yes. Oh man, John, I think you hit a bullseye there. I really think you hit a bullseye. Exactly. It just it it doesn't entirely work for me, this entire scenario with all the mixed up suitcases. And of course, we have this, this chase in San Francisco, which is fun, and all these shenanigans in the hotel rooms and everything. But I mean, here again, this is a solid screwball comedy. It's a loving homage to a practically extinct genre and everything. And yet, at the same time, I don't think it's anywhere close to being the masterpieces that Libeled Lady or My Man Godfrey or Bringing Up Baby. I mean, I don't think it comes quite up there. Here's Boss Hogg again. Now, this movie, one thing I do like about this movie is that it has a lot of familiar faces, and when we get down to the main hall where the convention is going on, we're going to be seeing a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people that later became stars and everything. I don't know who he is, but I hate him. But I mean, this is a rare commentary for a 50th anniversary movie where both leads are still with us. I mean, Ryan O'Neal is in his 80s, as is Barbra Streisand. I have very mixed opinions on Ryan O'Neal. I mean, to be perfectly clear, I have read Tatum O'Neal's book, which documents a lot of abuse that Ryan O'Neal subjected her to, and he slept with like Melanie Griffith when she was 17, and there was a lot of drugs involved, and apparently he got very jealous of Tatum when she won the Oscar for Paper Moon the year after this. But look, I'm not denying that Ryan O'Neal has movie star chops. I mean, he was a major star back in the early 70s, and I can certainly see why. Obviously women found him very handsome, and he had a light comic touch that he employed for a lot of these movies. I still think Paper Moon may be his best movie. I don't know. I mean, that's one of the few movies with Ryan O'Neal that I'm more than willing to return to, as well as Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. But I mean, before he did Love Story in 1970, he did two movies. He did The Big Bounce and The Games. And then when Love Story came out, that's when he was nominated for an Academy Award, and based on a best-selling book. I know exactly what Love Story is, and I'm sorry to say I will never, ever watch it. There's certain movies where I know enough information about, and I just know that if I subjected myself to those movies, that I wouldn't be a very happy camper. And Love Story is definitely one of those movies. That is not a book I would read. That is not a movie I would watch. And honestly, I don't understand how it became such a massive hit in 1970, and it made like $170 million. I think it was the highest grossing film of that year, as a matter of fact. But that was the film that shot Ryan O'Neal to superstardom. And then, of course, after Barry Lyndon, he would do another Peter Bogdanovich movie, which I've never seen, but I would like to check out sometime, called Nickelodeon, which is set during the silent film days and everything. Very hard to find that movie. In fact, here's the weird thing about Nickelodeon, which came out in 1976. It's that it's never been available on DVD until apparently it was released as a double bill with another movie. And then when that sold out, we've not seen Nickelodeon on physical media since, and it's very hard to find. It's always been hard to find. Okay, now I should mention real quick that the waiter here playing Rudy is a man by the name of George Mortfagin. I probably already messed up that name, but let me bring him up real quick. But he was actually very good friends with Peter Bogdanovich. He passed away in 2019, and he was actually the best man at his wedding when he married Polly Platt. Polly Platt, who is, of course, the production designer on this movie, married Peter Bogdanovich in 1962, and they were married until 1971 when, you know, he was making the Last Picture Show and decided to ogle Sybil Shepherd, the female star of that movie. And of course, later Peter would make with her Daisy Miller, and they would eventually break up off in the 1970s or the late 1970s. And George Morfagin also made another movie of Peter Bogdanovich called They All Laughed. And he was also in Illegally Yours. And he was even in Peter's last movie, which was a 2014 movie called She's Funny That Way, which unfortunately was kind of buried by a really poor critical reception. As a matter of fact, who starred in that movie? I'm trying. Owen Wilson and Sybil Shepherd was actually in it, as well as Austin Pendleton, who was also in this movie. Now, here Ryan O'Neal is talking to Kenneth Mars. And Kenneth Mars may be best known as playing the police inspector in Young Frankenstein with the wooden arm, or the fake arm that he had, which he always used to, like, you know, silly things like with lighting his cigars and everything. And I did an audio commentary last year on Desperate Characters, a movie he made with Shirley MacLaine, which it's actually a very depressing movie, but the acting in it is out of this world. If you've never seen Desperate Characters, please check that out because it's really, really good. And here on the right here is Austin Pendleton wearing the glasses here. Now, when I was growing up, the movie I associated Austin Pendleton with the most was, of course, the Muppet movie, because he played Charles Durning's right-hand man who wanted to get Kermit the Frog to essentially promote their chain of frog legs restaurants. And he's basically with he's with Charles Durning all the way to near the end when he finally comes around and you know, he gets on the bus that all the Muppets are on, and he warns them that that Charles Durning hired a frog killer from the coast to basically exterminate Kermit and the rest of the Muppets. And he kind of turns around his character like that. But Austin Pendleton had only done a few movies before What's Up, Doc. He was in Petulia with that was directed by Richard Lester and had George C. Scott. And then he was also in Skidoo and then also Catch-22. And then he did What's Up, Doc, and also another film in 1972 called Every Little Crook and Nanny, The Thief Who Came to Dinner, The Front Page, the Muppet movie, as I mentioned before. He was in Short Circuit. And he was also in My Cousin Vinny. He has a great role in My Cousin Vinny as the public defender that had this massive stutter. And the director of My Cousin Vinny noted that when audiences saw the movie, that Austin Pendleton actually got the most laughs whenever he was on screen and he had this stutter trying to get through, you know, questioning these witnesses and everything. It was just too funny for words. And Barbra Streisand would later cast Austin Pendleton in The Mirror Has Two Faces in a somewhat controversial move, because the story is that Dudley Moore had tried out for this part, who had long been in love with Barbra Streisand, and but because of the fact he was suffering from Parkinson's disease, Barbara replaced him with Austin Pendleton. Now, at this table scene, you obviously see Randy Quaid here, who, of course, would also appear in Paper Moon with Peter Bogdanovich. And this was years before he became famous for National Lampoon's Vacation, as Cousin Eddie in the Vacation movies and films like Independence Day. And of course, he's now a nut bar living in Vermont with his wife, making these crazy sex videos and accusing Hollywood of all sorts of negative things. Which, look, Hollywood is guilty of so much, but at the same time, if you watch these videos, you can tell that Randy Quaid is definitely he's definitely off his rocker. Let's put it that way. Yes, MLB fan, welcome to the commentary. I have seen the main event, and I must confess I didn't like it. As I said at the beginning of the commentary, is that with Barbra Streisand, I bought a 4-film box set, which had not only What's Up, Doc, but it also had Up the Sandbox, which she made in December, as well as Nuts, which is my favorite Barbra Streisand movie. But on that box set, the main event was my least favorite movie among the quartet, and it just didn't work for me. I just didn't find it that funny. Lucille Ball loved this movie. Oh, wow. And wanted Madeline to play Agnes in Lucy's Mame. She, quote, she hired me because of Eunice, but I don't like Eunice or talk like Eunice. She was disappointed and out I went. Oh, wow. That's an interesting bit of trivia that I had no idea. Now, you only were excuse me, you were able to see him in only a couple of shots. But there's another guy at this table with this crazy hair, and that guy's name is Stan Ross. And the reason why I know who Stan Ross is that in one of my favorite movies of all time, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, directed by Russ Meyer and written by Roger Ebert, he has a very famous role in that as one of the party goers who hangs out with this woman with bright pink hair, and they like to smoke a lot of marijuana, and of course she said yeah, I think she said in the movie that oh no, I'm sorry, it was Ashley St. Ives who played the porn star, and she went to him and said, why don't you come back to my pad? I got a waiting pool of mayonnaise. And he just says, mayonnaise. So that's that's Stan Ross for you. I'm not sure. I don't think we see him again later in the movie. I think he's just in that one scene. But if you go back, there's a frame where the four other gentlemen at the table stand up. Randy Quaid is all the way to the left, and Stan Ross is all the way on the right. And he has this crazy hairdo. And apparently he's still alive. Apparently he's in his 80s along with Barbara and Ryan. Oh, here's Boss Hogg again, up switching the suitcases. That's essentially all he's known for, aside from this movie, is Boss Hogg on Dukes of Hazzard. Which I was born in 1979, so unfortunately that show premiered the year I was born, so I never really got into it. Even in reruns, I didn't get into it, unfortunately. But I do like these dinner scenes where, Kenneth Mars and Austin Pendleton, are just, talking with the stars. And it should be mentioned that the screenplay for this movie was, there was actually two sets of writers. There was David Newman and Robert Benton, who both wrote Bonnie and Clyde, and they went through 3 drafts. And then they brought in Buck Henry, who, of course, wrote the screenplay for The Graduate. And then he did 3 more drafts, and they finally came up with the final draft for What's Up, Doc. But this screenplay, it actually won the 1973 Writers Guild of America Best Comedy Written Directly for the Screen Award, which is, I applaud that. I mean, it's and Ryan O'Neal is constantly breaking the fourth wall in this movie. And I think they do that a little bit too often. It's one of those things that you just don't want to do over and over and over again. I mean, Harold and Maude, which came out the year before this, the kid in that movie, he only does it once. And it's just absolutely epic. it's something you just don't want to overdo, is just breaking the fourth wall. You just don't want to overdo it, whether it's a sitcom or whether it's a movie like this. I liked Austin Pendleton in the front page and starting over. Yeah. He's done a lot of movies. And he's very recognizable. And he's still with us. I mean, he's still with us as well. Actually, a lot of this cast is still with us. I mean, they're all in their 80s now. In fact, Austin Pendleton is still working on Broadway. I mean, he's playing Mr. Oldfield in the Minutes. And he's actually going to be doing the film version of that here pretty soon. So, yeah, look out for that. Okay, there's Ross all the way over there to the right, and then Randy Quaid is all the way to the left. Are you serving at table 1? Yeah, it's kind of a shame about Randy Quaid, isn't it? I mean, he was hilarious in so many movies, and then his career just went literally down the toilet. Literally got flushed down the toilet when he started going nuts. And just to let everybody know, he did make his film debut in The Last Picture Show from the previous year, directed by Peter Bogdanovich. And the year after this, he actually got one of his best roles, if not his best role, which was in the Hal Ashby comedy drama, The Last Detail, which, speaking of somebody who served in the Navy for 8 years, I can tell you right now, that is the greatest movie ever made about Navy enlisted. And Randy Quaid has a key role in that because Jack Nicholson and Otis Young, they play these two first-class petty officers who have to transport Randy Quaid to the brig because he didn't get it, but he attempted to steal $40 out of the captain's wife's charity box. And so he was sentenced 8 years in this Marine Corps brig. And so Jack Nicholson and Otis Young decided to take Randy Quaid out for a last good time. Hands down, one of the best films of the 1970s, one of Hal Ashby's best movies. And I think this is one of my favorite moments in What's Up, Doc, when he turns the charm on the old lady by just tripping her in the lobby. But yeah, Randy Quaid was not only nominated for a BAFTA award, but also a Golden Globe award, as well as the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for The Last Detail. So early on, he was already getting massive praise. And it's just, he was also in Bound for Glory, which was also directed by Hal Ashby, and Midnight Express, long before he did National Lampoon's Vacation. And Fritz, right here, he's played by an actor named Stefan Jarash. He passed away in 2014, and he was in movies. He played the preacher in The Hustler. He was in High Plains Drifter as the mayor, and he was also in Carrie. He played Mr. Morton in Carrie. In Silver Streak, he was the Professor Schreiner and Johnson. He was also in The Champ, one of John's favorite movies. No, just kidding. Yeah, the Champ. What an embarrassment that was, right? Ricky Schroeder has not stopped crying since that movie. he's been crying for the past 30-40 years, ever since The Champ. Okay, now this hotel, this is an actual hotel that's in San Francisco. It's called the Bristol Hotel. And later, when Barbra Streisand jumps on the piano and starts playing As Time Goes By, that was actually in a section of the hotel that was being renovated. So they were able to shoot really freely. I think Ryan O'Neal and Barbra Streisand bounce off each other very well. I can't say definitively that there's any real chemistry here, because let me tell you, this is one of my primary complaints about this movie. the American Film Institute put What's Up Doc on the 100 best comedies of all time, but they also put it among 100 passions, which is the greatest love stories of all time. And I 100% disagree with that second honor. I really do. This is not a love story. It's a screwball comedy. And I don't care. I don't know. I mean, this is not a love story in any sense of the term. I mean, love story with Ryan O'Neal, that's a love story. Even without seeing it, I know that's a love story. This is not a love story. This is just a screwball comedy. So I don't know why it was put on that list, especially since there's, I could probably list 50 other movies that deserve that slot more than What's Up, Doc. I mean, that's one of the things I don't understand what Hollywood thinks when they put together these lists, is that there's nothing about this movie that screams at being a love story. Just no way. It's a comedy. You're not supposed to care about the characters. You're just supposed to be amused by the shenanigans and everything. I mean, I don't really feel passion for these people. I don't, cry and feel all romantic and sticky when they get together at the end. No, I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't understand whatsoever why the hell the AFI put this on their 100 best love stories. It's most certainly not a love story. And I please, anybody that wants to challenge me on that, please do. But I absolutely disagree with that. When Barbra got the AFI award, she went back over her career and almost reluctantly talked about DOC. It was a funny script. I just didn't understand it. Of course, she completely ignored the main event. Oh, talked about Doc. Excuse me. I don't know why I thought that was an acronym. Excuse me, John. But yeah, What's Up, Doc? Of course, she completely ignored the main event. Although, I mean, the main event made money. I mean, obviously audiences wanted to see Ryan O'Neal and Barbra Streisand again, and it made money. But, it's probably one of her worst movies, to be perfectly honest. Madeline Kahn is reading the sensuous woman. There you go. Oh, I miss Madeline Kahn. I mean, one of my other favorite comedies is, of course, the 1985 adaptation of the board game Clue, and she plays Mrs. White in that movie, and she delivers it's now legendary. She delivers the only moment of improvisation in Clue, which is during the second ending, when she confesses that she killed Yvette the maid, because she says, I hated her so much that the flames on the side of my face, heaving breaths. That line alone is worth seeing Clue for. I mean, if you want to complain that movie gets, very silly and ridiculous by the end of it, I don't care. Clue is worth seeing just for that Madeline Kahn moment. She's brilliant in that. Just brilliant. Just died way too young. Way too young. Yeah, she was only 57. She was only 57 when she passed. It's unbelievable. And yet, and she, what? Along with Austin Pendleton, she was also in the Muppet movie. She had a cameo in the Muppet movie at the El Sleazo Cafe when Kermit the Frog comes in. Madeline Kahn is there at the bar, in a really sexy dress, by the way, and she just looks over at Kermit the Frog and says, "Oh, hey, sailor, buy me a drink." And Kermit's like, "No, I'm not a sailor. I'm a frog." Oh, let's see. Okay. And of course, Ryan O'Neal has to take off his clothes here. For anybody that's just joined in, welcome to the What's Up Doc commentary. We are approximately 40 minutes and 30 seconds in. So if you want to jump to that timestamp for What's Up Doc, and you can follow along here. Ryan O'Neal just discovered Barbra Streisand in the bathtub here. I mean, here again, Barbara is very cute in this movie, but I can't help but find her also a little annoying. I mean, here again, she's a little annoying and she's a little bit delightful. And, you know, audiences obviously loved her at the time in the early 70s. But if you think I would pay thousands of dollars to hear her sing live in concert, you're out of your mind. I mean, I would not pay that obscene amount of money for anybody, let alone Barbara Streisand. And you know, it's funny, I read very recently about the whole story behind the Streisand effect, where you know, somebody took a picture of her beachfront multi-million dollar home and she like sued them for like millions of dollars, but she ended up losing, which I'm actually in agreement with. Oh, I'm sure the ladies really loved Ryan O'Neal with that bow tie and those boxer shorts on. Yeah, but you know, Ryan O'Neal really delivers some comic moments in this. I mean, I mean, look, he shines as a movie star. There's no question. He does shine as a movie star. Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, Rob. Glad to see you come in. Welcome to the commentary for What's Up, Doc. Yeah. Have you ever seen The Owl and the Pussycat? You know what? I have not seen Owl and the Pussycat, but I was going to mention that because when we first see Barbara Streisand in this movie, when she goes up to the pizzeria and the guy is making the pizza and he throws it up in the air and the dough doesn't come down. Behind her across the street is a bar called The Owl. And I was going to mention that. I mean, it's probably not an intentional reference, but yeah, I probably should see Owl and the Pussycat, but I've never seen it, unfortunately. I've seen Yentl, but I've not seen The Owl and the Pussycat. Although I have seen the other movie she made in 1970 called On a Clear Day You Can See Forever, which had Jack Nicholson of all people. Yeah, Jack Nicholson made a movie with Barbara Streisand, and it was called On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. And I've never seen Hello, Dolly. I have seen The Way We Were. I did like The Way We Were, even though I thought it was just the tiniest bit overrated. But I understand why people love it. I mean, hell, that's more of a love story 1,000-fold than What's Up, Doc is. I mean, but I've never seen A Star Is Born. But I've seen most of her other movies. In fact, I even saw the last movie she did, which was called The Guilt Trip, which was a Mother's Day movie that she made with Seth Rogen. Wasn't terrible. You know, wasn't terrible. I mean, I actually think it's watchable, and I think you can even watch it for free now. So, but I also never seen For Pete's Sake or All Night Long, which Barbara Streisand was also in. Good evening, Katrina. Wonderful to see you here tonight. Absolutely. How was A Clear Day? It was okay. I remember it being okay. I remember watching it in a hotel room, and I guess I was just weirded out by seeing Jack Nicholson and Barbara Streisand in a musical together. It was really, really weird. But a good little movie. Good little movie. It also has Yves Montand and Bob Newhart, as well as Roy Kinnear. Now, bravo to Polly Platt, because one of my favorite things about What's Up, Doc is the production design. I mean, of course, in all these scenes in the hotel room, I'm fascinated by like all the 1970s, you know, colors and textures and everything. Really interesting. And here we have Michael Murphy again. All these characters scrambling to get the suitcases. Of course, Ryan O'Neal doesn't want Madeline Kahn, his fiance, catching only Barbara Streisand in a towel. And here's Boss Hogg again. I hated For Pete's Sake. Oh, really? I mean, like I said, I've never seen it. I mean, I guess it might be down there with the main event. But who? Oh, okay. Roast beef on rye, mustard. Oh, that does sound good, actually. That actually sounds really good. We are approximately 46 minutes into What's Up, Doc? So we're about halfway through. And we're pretty much going to, I'm not really going to be taking a break after What's Up, Doc, just to let everybody know, but I'm going to give everybody about 3 minutes before we start the bonus commentary for Targets, which it's going to be a tough movie to watch. Especially in light of the tragic mass shooting that happened today. I mean, we'll get to that, though. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things to say about Targets when we get there. But okay, I don't think that's Barbara. I'm pretty sure that's a stunt double. I highly doubt Barbara would be willing to. What is up with this bathrobe that Kenneth Mars is wearing? It's like, I thought that was a crazy bathrobe. And the cinematography for What's Up, Doc? Was, of course, done by the Hungarian cinematographer Laszlo Kovacs, who was part of the American New Wave of films in the 1970s. And he also worked with Dennis Hopper. He shot Easy Rider in 1969 and Five Easy Pieces. And he's received 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards. And he passed away in 2007 at the age of 74. But he also shot Targets, as well as Psych Out. He shot 3 films for Richard Rush, actually, in 1968, along with Targets. And he also shot Five Easy Pieces and Paper Moon, that wonderful, wonderful black and white photography evoking the 1930s in Paper Moon. He shot Shampoo for Hal Ashby. Nickelodeon, he shot that as well. And he shot Ghostbusters for Whitman. Yes, absolutely. The Peter Bogdanovich movie Mask with Cher. I have to rewatch that. I actually need to go back and rewatch Cher. Mask with Cher. And Laszlo Kovacs, he also shot Say Anything, the Cameron Crowe film from 1989. And one of his last movies, or actually his last movie that he shot, was the 2 Weeks Notice, which is this it's a mediocre romantic comedy with Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock, which I don't remember too well. But he also directed Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock and Return to Me, which was the film written and directed by Bonnie Hunt. It's actually a very underrated romantic comedy. Nickelodeon was pretty good, I thought, even though most don't like it. I gotta add Nickelodeon to my list because that's been one that it's been hard to see over the years. And of course, I'm a hardcore buff of silent movies. I mean, I live for silent movies. Silent movies is actually my favorite genre, despite the fact it's obsolete. Yeah, I gotta check out Nickelodeon sometime. Absolutely. And 6 years after this movie, the screenwriters of Bonnie and Clyde that I mentioned, Robert Benton and David Newman, they would also work at different points on the Superman screenplay, which, of course, was originated by Mario Puzo. Now, this is, of course, John Hillerman. I've seen John Hillerman in a number of movies, and he's always a very kind of an intimidating presence. He was also in Paper Moon the year after this. He was also in Last Picture Show, played a teacher in that. His first movie was an uncredited role in They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, which was the sequel to In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier. And he was also in Skyjacked with Charlton Heston, that also came out in 1972. Paper Moon may be his most, well, actually, no, his most recognizable role was as Howard Johnson in Blazing Saddles, where he runs the ice cream parlor in town. And what he says in the church in the beginning, that's when we find out that incest runs rampant in the town. He says, Dr. Samuel Johnson's right about Olson Johnson's being right. And I'm not going to tear down my ice cream parlor that I built with these 2 hands for nothing or nobody. And he was, of course, in Chinatown as Russ Yelburton, History of the World Part 1, Audrey Rose, Up the Creek, and his very last role was as Dr. Whitehead in a Very Brady sequel. Yeah, the sequel to the Brady Bunch movie. And I will be doing the Brady Bunch movie as a commentary later in the year. I may do it as a double commentary with the sequel. I don't know. But I plan on doing the Brady Bunch movie later in the year only because it's one of the last films that was produced by the great Alan Ladd Jr., who also passed away this year. And just to let everybody know, Alan Ladd Jr. was the man responsible for giving George Lucas the green light at 20th Century Fox to do Star Wars. And he had a whole company in the early 80s called the Ladd Company. And they also put out hits like Police Academy and The Right Stuff. So I'll be doing commentaries on those probably later in the year. As a matter of fact, I even talked about the Right Stuff last night because, of course, it has the late Fred Ward in it when I did the commentaries last night in dedication to him. Now, this scene right here, this is the scene I was talking about earlier where this is a particular part of the hotel and great shots of San Francisco out there on the windows. Yeah, absolutely. Nickelodeon was released on Columbia's DVD Martini Time series along with other underachievers, the Anderson tapes, and Dollars. Yes. Yeah. I had planned to do a commentary on Dollars last year, and I never got around to it. I've only seen it once. I got to check it out again. I think I didn't do it because it wasn't available streaming at the time. And then getting the DVD, I don't think I had time to get the DVD in time. But yeah, that Martini Time series, I mean, I can't believe that they regulated those films to just bare bones DVDs with no bonus features whatsoever. But I'm definitely going to add Nickelodeon to my list. Yeah, I'm sorry. Barbra Streisand on a piano just doesn't do anything for me. I mean, look, she's adorable here. Okay, I'm not trying to trash on Barbra Streisand, but at the same time, there's other points in the movie where she's just straight up annoying. I mean, you just want her to go away. My mother was a notorious Barbara hater because she said, I've always hated her big nose. Yeah, see her nose there? I don't know. I mean, I have no problem with the nose. I think she's cute. I just think her character is kind of annoying at points. But look, you can see why Ryan O'Neal, starts to like this this crazy woman. I have to see Dollars. Yeah, Dollars is really good. I've only seen it once, but it's marked by this chase scene that lasts like the last 30 minutes of the movie. Like the last quarter of the movie is just this long chase scene. I mean, it's a bank robbery picture with Warren Beatty and Goldie Hawn. And yes, this is very, very, very early Goldie Hawn, right after she won the Oscar for Cactus Flower. On an unrelated note, to be perfectly honest, I'm ashamed of myself because I've never seen Cactus Flower either. But Cactus Flower, believe it or not, was remade by Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston called Just Go With It. That movie is a ripoff of Cactus Flower, and I'm still shocked that hardly any critics actually noticed that it was in fact a remake, or rather a ripoff, because Adam Sandler loves ripping off classic movies like Mr. Deeds Goes to Town and The Freshman, which of course became The Water Boy. But anyway, I'm not going to go anymore on Adam Sandler. Oh wow, Dollars may be the smartest, sharpest heist movie of all time. Wow. Well, that's good enough for me. I got to check out Dollars again. Absolutely. And that's the Grant, Mr. Larrabee, played by Austin Pendleton, signed. Like, oh. I mean, they obviously liked working together. I mean, they later did The Main Event. I don't think they did a third film. I mean, they probably could have done more films like Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn did. I mean, they obviously made a pretty good team. I just wish the main event had a better script. I mean, here again, I'm not taking anything away from these, from Barbara or Ryan, because, they obviously have talent and audiences loved them at the time, but they're far from being my favorite actors. And, and just to let everybody know, we are 56 minutes into What's Up, Doc. 56 minutes. We have approximately 37 minutes to go. Oh, Madeline Kahn. I love her hair, especially. I don't know what it is about Madeline Kahn's hair in this movie. I really, she looks cute as a button here. Oh, it's that face. I mean, you automatically sympathize with her just with that face. I mean, she's kind of. I mean, she is funny in this movie, but I don't like how they treat her character at certain points. Michael Murphy's like, oh shit. Where's the dictionary? Yeah, there it is. That's Barbra Streisand's dictionary. It reminds me of Say Anything, because the girl in that movie, Ione Skye, she's like the class valedictorian, and she has this massive dictionary. It probably weighs a ton. And over the years, she would mark every single word that she looked up. And of course, John Cusack is flipping through it and notices like 50 X marks on every single page. And he like goes through it. He's like, oh, I can't look at that anymore. Oh, and that's funny. Both characters just said Say Anything. Oh, how ironic is that? That's crazy. 58 minutes in here. Now, let me see something else here. John Calley, who is the head of Warner Brothers Production, called Peter Bogdanovich in his office and said, look, Barbara really wants to work with you. If you were going to make a picture with Barbra Streisand, what kind of picture would you do? And Peter said, well, oh, I don't know, kind of a screwball comedy, something like Bring Up Baby, Daffy Girl, Square Professor, everything works out all right. And the head of production said, do it. Do it. Mm-hmm. Bogdanovich claims the rousing chase sequence accounted for 1/4 of the film's $4 million budget. The classic plate glass scene, and we're coming up to that, in which O'Neal and Streisand are pedaling on a stolen grocery store delivery bicycle, was filmed at Balboa and 23rd Avenue in the Richmond district. In another scene, their out-of-control bike goes down Clay Street in Chinatown. Yeah, this was all filmed on location in San Francisco. In fact, I think maybe the hotel rooms may be the only sets. I don't know. But a lot of this was actually shot at the actual hotel, the Bristol Hotel in San Francisco. Oh, and this is back when a lot of people smoked. I mean, they smoked on planes, they smoked on trains. Yeah, I mean, if you jump in a cab, I mean, a cab driver might be smoking a cigarette, and like, what are you going to do? You know? Now, this is actually, I remember when I rewatched this is actually a very creepy shot right here. When she's going up the stairs, because you know that she's about to get into some trouble here. Babs has said that she didn't get why What's Up, Doc was so popular when it was released. Really? Really? Has she never seen a screwball comedy before? I mean, that's the thing. I can almost imagine a lot of moviegoers who were around in the 1930s and went to go to movies and saw these screwball comedies during the Great Depression. They probably saw this as like, oh, this is cute, you know? Absolutely. Oh, we're going to talk about Liam Dunn. We're getting to him. I promise we're getting to him. Yes. Madeline, Liam Dunn is the judge, and Kenneth Mars were all in Young Frankenstein 2 years later. Yes. So obviously Mel Brooks was a fan of this movie. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of these actors wound up in Mel Brooks's movies, which lets you know not only just how big of a hit this comedy was, but also, yeah, Mel Brooks is evidently a huge fan of it. Can you all believe that Mel Brooks is still with us and he's 96 years old? That just blows my mind. I really do hope he makes it to 100. I really do hope he makes it to the century. I got to be honest. I'm still heartbroken that Betty White didn't make it. I'm still heartbroken about that. Uh, the wonderful Betty White. And we're coming up here on the 1 hour and 2 minute mark. 1 hour and 2 minutes, and we have approximately 32 minutes left to go. And here we finally have all four of the suitcases in one room, and they're going to open them all to see what's all in there. And before we go on this long chase scene in the streets of San Francisco. Oh man, those suits. Yeah, I was talking about during the Shaggy DA commentary a couple nights ago. I mean, all these leisure suits in the 1970s. I mean, they're so horribly dated now. Oh, Austin Pendleton's wearing one of those suits. Yeah. Oh, and Ryan O'Neal's tie is plaid, just like the suitcases. I'm pretty sure that was intentional. I wouldn't be surprised if that was intentional. Hmm. Hmm. Musical in-jokes appear throughout the film. Over-the-top Muzak-styled elevator music featuring Cole Porter's songs is used throughout the hotel elevator scenes. In the chase scene, a Chinese marching band is inexplicably playing the Mexican tune La Cucaracha, although in certain points it sounds more like Deep in the Heart of Texas on German glockenspiels. At the American musicologist themes from Thénault Arbeau's Oceanography can be heard in the background, incongruously played on a Hammond organ and a sitar. George Gershwin's Someone to Watch Over Me is whistled by Streisand outside the hotel drugstore. And the Bugs Bunny number, derived from his characteristic tagline that gives the movie its title, appears as well, with the original animation in the very last scene. Instrumental versions of Please Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone, an old Tin Pan Alley hit, which had appeared in Looney Tunes cartoon One Froggy Evening, are background music during the opening scene in the airport. However, as with Bringing Up Baby, all the music is diegetic. There is no underscoring anywhere in the movie. And What's Up, Doc? It is available on Blu-ray. And I know for a fact there is a Barbra Streisand commentary as well as a separate Peter Bogdanovich commentary. And I know I listened to them when I got that box set years ago, but I didn't buy the movie again just to listen to those commentaries again, unfortunately. And that's another thing I got to give Barbara for is that she does commentaries for her movies. I mean, she did commentaries for What's Up, Doc and Nuts and Up the Sandbox, as well as the main event. In his review of What's Up, Doc, critic John Simon, upon whom, according to director Bogdanovich, the character of Hugh Simon is based on, that's Kenneth Mars in the movie, said that Barbra Streisand, quote, looked like a cross between an aardvark and an albino rat, surmounted by a platinum-coated horse bun, and called the film a heavy-handed attempt at nostalgia. Well, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Oh, and there you go. It was the third highest grossing movie of the year, right behind The Godfather and The Poseidon Adventure. Now, I already did The Godfather earlier in the year. Unfortunately, I'm not a huge fan of The Poseidon Adventure, so I think I'm going to pass on that. Peter took Barbara to a late night showing of What's Up, Doc at a theater in Westwood when she complained it wasn't funny. The audience was roaring, and she still didn't understand why. Okay, does Barbra Streisand not have a sense of humor? Okay, look, I admit that what I just read that John Simon wrote about her is way harsh. That is way harsh, okay? I don't know where she got the aardvark and the albino rat from, but does she not understand comedy? I mean, is that, does she just know about music and she doesn't understand comedy? I mean, that makes no sense to me. No sense. But here we are. We're now starting this chase scene through the streets of San Francisco as they jumped on the cart here. I mean, and this, it's a pretty good chase scene. I mean, it. I mean, here again, What's Up, Doc? I wouldn't classify this film as hilarious. I would more so classify it as amusing. But I'm glad that lots of people in 1972 found it hilarious. And believe me, I love screwball comedies. I mean, like I mentioned before, Libeled Lady, Bringing Up Baby, My Man Godfrey, It Happened One Night, another one of the great screwball comedies. I mean, I like all those films. I just thought this was just a nice homage to those movies. I mean, but to me, there's nothing brilliant about What's Up, Doc. It doesn't even come close to what I would say are the top comedies of the 1970s. I just wouldn't put it even close. But I know the AFI disagrees with me on that. But I mean, I also obviously I find it funnier than Barbara. Although this part is very, very funny when they go under the ladder, and then all this must have been storyboarded. They must have storyboarded all this because it's just, one action after another that had to be carefully executed. Yeah, then all the cars come in, but what's going to happen to the glass? I mean, I'm sure everybody predicted that it was going to be broken somehow, but it's boom. Is the commentary on the What's Up, Doc new? Don't think I've heard it. No, that box set came out in 2003. And like I said, it included What's Up, Doc, Up the Sandbox, which was another movie that Barbara made in December of 1972, which I actually prefer. And it's actually it's a really weird movie. And I think even John likes the movie. I mean, if you want to confirm that, I would appreciate that. But yeah, she did commentaries on all those movies in the early 2000s. So yeah, the Chinese Dragon. I mean, this is lighthearted, clean fun. I don't blame the audience whatsoever for loving this movie. I just don't think it's one of Peter Bogdanovich's best films. She does a scene-specific commentary on the What's Up, Doc DVD. Mostly she's eating during the showing, and at one point she reads a prepared synopsis. She mostly talks about her costumes. See, that's the thing. I haven't heard that commentary in so long. I'm glad. Thank you for that confirmation, John. I really do appreciate it. Shangri-La costume rentals. Well, there you go. She just talks about the costumes. She must not understand the rules of comedy. And here again, I'm not saying that she should, because she's a musician. She's not a comedian. But then again, I mean, working with Peter Bogdanovich, I think is it possible she saw Last Picture Show and wanted to do a drama with him? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, wearing these costumes right here. Who did the costumes for this movie, by the way? Hmm. Yeah, waiting for Liam Dunn, the judge, to show up. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I was just looking up who did the costumes. Oh, Polly Platt. She did the costumes uncredited. Well, there you go. All right. Ah. So not only did she do the production design, but she also did the costumes. Okay. Hmm. I do like the hat that Barbara's wearing, though. It's maybe a little loud, but whatever. Oh, okay. I don't think we've passed it yet, but there's a road that the Volkswagen goes down with a bunch of curves. I don't remember the name of the road. Actually, no, wait a minute. I can. It should be coming up here soon, but that's a very famous road in San Francisco. Where is it? I know I read about it in this section here. Wait a minute. Uh, hmm. Sorry for being quiet, everybody. I just want to make sure I got this real quick. Oh, Sylvester Stallone was an extra in this movie. However, he's not seen very clearly in his scenes as he's walking away far in the background. But apparently, Stallone was an extra in What's Up, Doc? He probably doesn't even remember, to be perfectly honest. But during the chase scene, the large black limo loses its hood during a hard turn. It was an accident, but it was kept in the movie. Oh, okay. But where's the road that they go down? It has all those curves. Oh, oh they go down the stairs here. Yeah. Hmm. Where is that? Oh, this is bothering me. This really is. Well, okay. I forget the name of the road, but they go down this road with a lot of curves. It Herbie in the Love Bug in 1969 is also set in San Francisco, and he goes down that exact same street. The end of the car chase shows many characters swimming in San Francisco Bay, except for the movie's two leads who are floating on the water in the Volkswagen Beagle. Yes, and the car was floating was a parody of the Volkswagen's ability to float on water, which had been a staple of its advertising in recent years. The make and model had also been popularized in the then recent movie The Love Bug. But also Herbie Rides Again, which is also set in San Francisco. In that movie, Herbie actually has to cross the bay. So this came out 2 years before Herbie Rides Again. Barbra saw the last picture show and said, quote, "I hoped I could make something meaningful with him, not a piece of fluff, but something that would really affect people." See, okay, yeah, that pretty much confirms that she probably did not have a screwball comedy in mind if she was going to be working with Peter Bogdanovich. Yep, that explains a lot right there. It's like 20 minutes or so. Oh, I thought she talked a lot more. Well, maybe, I mean, Nuts, she talks a bit more, and as well as Up the Sandbox. I mean, that's the thing. They are scene-specific commentaries. They're not full commentaries. But anyway, here's Liam Dunn right here. And Liam Dunn, I mean, he's especially well known for being in the beginning of Young Frankenstein, where he plays the patient that Gene Wilder is working with. Yeah. Mr. Hilltop. That's what it is. Yes. As you can see, all communication has shut off. But Liam Dunn. Oh, this is crazy. His last movie was as the dog catcher in The Shaggy DA. Dunn collapsed on the set of Disney's The Shaggy DA during the filming of the roller rink sequence, and as soon as he was hospitalized, he died on April 11th, 1976 from emphysema in California. John Fiedler, who gives the voice of Piglet, was brought in to complete the role as dog catcher. Though only 59 at the time of his death, Dunn always looked much older than he was, and he was cast accordingly. So, yeah, in this movie, he's 52. But, yeah, he does look a lot older than 52. And, you know, he played the preacher in Blazing Saddles. He was also in Catch-22. Sanford and Son, he played Gus on that show. The Great Northville, Minnesota Raid. I mean, he only made a handful of movies in the 1970s. He was also in Papillion and Long Last Love. I mean, Peter Bogdanovich brought him back for that. He was also in Mel Brooks' Silent Movie, and also, and then his last couple movies were Gus, the Disney movies Gus and The Shaggy DA. Yeah, but man, is he so memorable in Young Frankenstein? He is really especially memorable in that. Yeah, Mel Brooks obviously loved him so much he had to cast him in both Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, along with many of these others. And this is just chaos right here. This is just absolute chaos. Huh. Yeah. This is the first American film to credit the stunt people in the credits. Oh, wow. Well, that's a mark in film history right there. The first British film to do so was actually the James Bond film Moonraker. The fender bender that Judy causes as she crosses the street to the Bristol Hotel was added on the spur of the moment. When no stunt cars were available, Peter Bogdanovich instructed a crew member to rent 2 cars and make sure he got collision insurance. Then he staged the wreck before returning to the battered cars. Are you serious? He's only 52 in What's Up, Doc? Yeah. Yeah, he was 52 years old in this movie. Yep. The final chase scene, a spoof of one of the recent movie Bullet with Steve McQueen, was also filmed in San Francisco and cost $1 million to shoot, 19 days requiring 32 stuntmen, resulting in 11 minutes of screen time. The segment with the giant pane of glass alone took 4 or 5 days to film, and that was at the junction of Balboa and 23rd Avenue in San Francisco's Richmond district. Director Peter Bogdanovich did not get permission from the city of San Francisco to drive cars down the concrete steps in Alta Plaza Park. These were badly damaged during filming and still show the scars today. Oh, really? Damn. And that's crazy because when we get to targets, there's an entire sequence where he shoots illegally, and it's actually one of the it's one of the most shocking sequences in the movie, but we'll get to that. Because the damage to city property during the filming of this movie, San Francisco now requires productions to provide with its filming permit application a very detailed scene-by-scene breakdown of everything that the company is asking permission to film. Wow. When Howard Bannister ends up at the rooftop cocktail lounge, which was under construction, it was not a set, but actually the starlight roof of the Hilton, which was being remodeled at the time. Mm-hmm. And as his part is inspired by the stuffy professor played by Cary Grant in Bringing Up Baby, Ryan O'Neal actually met with Cary Grant, and the only advice he received was to wear silk underpants. Oh my God. Can you imagine that? Cary Grant telling Ryan O'Neal, no. Just wear silk underpants. You'll be fine, man. The long-haired blonde delivery boy whose bike Judy steals is played by Kevin O'Neal, Ryan O'Neal's brother. And the woman she sits next to on the plane in the final scene is Patricia O'Neal, their mother. Okay. Oh, wow. A male stuntman was used to double Barbra Streisand in the long shots of her riding the bicycle. During one hairpin turn, he fell off and broke his ankle. Yep, that's par for the course. That's what stuntmen have to go through. So glad they got credit. I mean, bravo to Peter Bogdanovich for giving them credit on this movie. Absolutely. The stuntman portraying the gentleman sitting in the back seat of the convertible during the chase scene was not cold when his head hit the awning on the dock just before the car went off. Wow. And Barbra Streisand's role was a Carole Lombard type character. Director Peter Bogdanovich once said that Streisand was, quote, the first person we've had on the screen like Carole Lombard. When writing, Streisand's character was fashioned in the mold of Carole Lombard. And finally, Liam Dunn was primarily a casting director before Peter Bogdanovich offered the role of Judge Maxwell. And, finally, director Peter Bogdanovich had Ryan O'Neal and Barbra Streisand watch The Lady Eve, the famous Preston Sturges movie, in preparation for this movie. Interesting. All right, just to let everybody know, we are 1 hour and 24 minutes into What's Up, Doc. We got less than 10 minutes to go. Yep. All the main characters here in the courtroom. Of course, Boss Hogg is being as loud as possibly can be. You know what? Nietzsche says, out of chaos comes order. Oh, blow it out your ass, Howard. Quoting Blazing Saddles there. Although Liam Dunn, he still has one of the funniest lines in Blazing Saddles, I think, when when they're about to build the fake town and everything, and he says, "Can we achieve this deed in one night, or are we just jerking off?" Amen. Oh, yeah. Bless Liam Dunn, one of the funniest guys to appear in 1970s film. Absolutely. The now defunct TWA. Yeah, Barbara does look cute with the green shirt here, and the hat. I do like the clothes. Got your things back? Yeah. Of course, we got to wrap all this up. Now, I think what's coming up here when she just disappears, I think that's a direct homage to Bringing Up Baby, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, we're about to get a direct reference to Ryan O'Neal's love story here, which is actually very, very funny. That wasn't all so bad, was it? The final scene at the airport was filmed first. When Mrs. Van Hoskins rattles off the calamities Judy caused, none of that had been shot yet. Peter said it's, quote, murder filming out of sequence like that. Oh, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, there have been very few film productions where they actually film every sequence in order according to the script. It's only with, certain movies like Friday the 13th where they actually do that for a specific purpose, because most films are shot out of sequence for, obvious reasons. Maybe they can't get a location on a certain day. Maybe there's weather issues involved, that so many things could happen. Yeah, like I said, we have about 7 minutes to go. Anything else? Any comments on what's up, Doc? Please be sure to give it in the comments section. And like I said, the movie will be over about 10:40 Eastern time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a 5-minute break. I'm going to be right back. I'm seriously going to be right back, and I'm not going to another stream. I'm going to stay on this stream for targets. And just to double check. And just to double check, you can rent targets over at Amazon for $2.99. I have the DVD, but you can rent targets over at Amazon for $2.99. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to have a lot to say about targets. We're going to have a lot to say about it, particularly in light of the very tragic circumstances today. In fact, I'm going to be dedicating the commentary to the victims of the mass shooting up in Buffalo. I was originally going to do both of these commentaries last Saturday night, but yeah, unfortunately, I was just too tired and wasn't up for it, and decided to wait. But I warn you all right now, if you're going to watch Targets with me, I warn you, it's not easy to watch. Peter Bogdanovich always referred to it as his only horror movie. I mean, technically, it's more of a thriller, but I believe it's a horror movie in every aspect. I mean, the horror film community may disagree, but I think it is. And it certainly opened the doorway in 1968 to what we term modern horror, along with George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Utilizing a mountaineer yodel. I highly doubt Barbra Streisand knew half of the things that she was talking about. I really don't think so. Half of the things she says in this movie, maybe she had no idea what the hell she was talking about. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Cary Grant was often mimicked as saying, Judy, Judy, Judy. He replied, I never said that. So Peter had Ryan say, Judy, 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 in homage to Cary. Okay, yes. Yeah, that's what that was referring to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, John. I mean, yeah, your insight is really proving valuable here tonight. It really is. Because like I said, I was not around in 1972 when I saw these movies. But, here again, I also think this is the perfect point to start because I love 1970s cinema. I mean, I really do revel in it. I mean, even though silence is my favorite genre, I think 1970s might be the best decade in film. I think it might very well be. And even though this was a box office hit in 1972, I'm not sure I would put this probably in the top 15, but not in the top 10. Certainly not, like Barbra Streisand singing in the beginning, it's the top. Nah. It's to me, it's not even the top of the year. Yeah, to me, I mean, unfortunately, I just don't think What's Up Doc is quite as great as like Cabaret or The Godfather or Carnal Knowledge or oh, okay, now here's the Bugs Bunny cartoon, which just in case anybody in the audience didn't understand what the title was referring to, that's where it comes from. And I think, am I wrong? But Barbra Streisand, I think, eats carrots at several times in the movie. I think she does. Dr. Howard Bannister, as in sliding down. And this is a direct reference to Love Story. Well, not What's Up, Doc, but what they exchange right here. That's cute. That's actually really cute. Love means never having to say you're sorry. And of course, Ryan O'Neal, who was in Love Story, where that quote says, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard." Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. Love Story is just one of those movies I will never, ever bother with. I mean, I know what it's going to be. I know what to expect watching a movie like that. No, thank you. And of course, it ends with Porky Pig saying, "That's all, folks." And here we have our cast. Barbra Streisand is Judy Maxwell. Ryan O'Neal is Howard Bannister. Yeah. Madeline Kahn in her very first film. I wonder, I don't know, this is maybe one of the first films that did casting like this, where it actually showed who the actors were and gave them the credits on the screen like this. I mean, I'm pretty sure this was not the first time that it was done. Sorrel Book is Harry. Yep. But it's actually really nice that the actors get this kind of showcase at the end of the movie. It's really nice. Liam Dunn is Judge Maxwell. Yes. And there's John Hillerman's credit at the top, Randy Quaid. Yep. Mm-hmm. There's Stan Ross that I was talking about before as one of the other musicologists. Yep. Patricia O'Neill, Lady on the Plane. That was Ryan O'Neal's mother. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And distributed by Warner Brothers. All right, well, tell you what, everybody, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and I promise I will be right back in about 3 minutes, and we will go ahead and get started with targets. Yeah, I just need to get the DVD set up. So just give me 3 minutes. I will be back. Okay, I'm back here and I got it paused on the Paramount logo for targets. I'm playing this off this old DVD. It's not been released on Blu-ray, and I've had this DVD actually for the past 15 years. It does include an introduction and audio commentary by Peter Bogdanovich, and this is pretty much out of print. And this is the only way, aside from streaming, that you'll be able to watch Target. So if you want it on DVD, you better get a copy off eBay when you can. But otherwise, it is available for streaming on Amazon Prime. And okay, so this is Peter Bogdanovich's very first movie. Came out in 1968, and so let's go ahead and get started here. I'm pretty sure everybody that's in the chat or anybody that's watching will be ready to go here. So. At any rate, so we're paused at the Paramount logo, and we will start playing at the count of three. 3, 2, 1, and play. Yeah, a Sadikoy production. That, of course, is the production company of Polly Platt and Peter Bogdanovich. Now, the story behind Targets and how this movie came together is actually very interesting. Roger Corman, well, actually, it should be noted that, okay, the title comes up here starring Boris Karloff. This is all footage from a 1963 movie called The Terror, which came from Roger Corman in 1963. And so the idea is that Peter Bogdanovich was working for Roger Corman and had learned how to work on his productions. And Peter went to him, Roger Corman went to him one day and said, would you like to make a movie? And Peter, of course, said yes. And okay, here's the situation. Boris Karloff owes me 2 days. He owes me 2 days of film. What you can do, take 30 minutes of The Terror, shoot more footage of Boris Karloff, and then whatever rest of the movie you want to come up with, you can do that. So, and that's what Peter Bogdanovich did. He decided to write a movie based around The Terror. And the idea is that what if the movie opened up? Well, we had Jack Nicholson on the screen actually here real quick, because Jack Nicholson and Dick Miller were both in The Terror with Boris Karloff. I've never seen the Terror in full. There's Polly Platt's credit right there as production designer. Of course, she was married to Peter Bogdanovich at the time. Director of photography, Laszlo Kovacs, who also shot What's Up, Doc, of course. Now, the idea that Peter Bogdanovich came up with when it came to writing and shooting Targets was, okay, let's do this Boris Karloff, The Terror thing, but also the other half of the movie is going to involve a young kid by the name of Bobby Thompson, a young, quiet, clean-cut insurance agent and Vietnam War veteran who decides to just one day murder his wife and his mother, and then go out on the Los Angeles freeway and just start murdering people at random. And it was actually based on Charles Whitman, who perpetrated the University of Texas Tower shooting in 1966. But the way it opens up right here, because here we have Boris Karloff watching The Terror, the idea that Peter Bogdanovich came up with, well, what if the movie opens with Boris Karloff turning to Roger Corman and said, that was the worst picture I've ever seen in my life. The legendary Boris Karloff, of course, who played Frankenstein in 1931 and did hundreds of horror movies for Universal Studios back in the 1930s. And in the 40s and 50s, he started making a lot of low-budget horror movies from, independent studios and everything. Technically, this is not Boris Karloff's last movie. Technically, this is his last great movie. But he had also shot some movies in Mexico, which were released after his death. Here we have Peter Bogdanovich in the role of Sammy Michaels, a screenwriter. Yes, he in fact, I mean, the budget was so low on this movie that Peter Bogdanovich, even though he had written this role for another actor, he felt like he had no choice but to take over the role himself. So Peter Bogdanovich is actually acting on screen along with Boris Karloff. And Boris Karloff would only live for about 6 more months after this movie because he passed away in early 1969. And what happened was after Targets was finished and everything was in the can, Peter Bogdanovich was convinced that he could find distribution outside of Roger Corman's American International Pictures. He thought that this movie was actually legitimately good enough for a studio. So he went to Paramount, and the head of Paramount, who was, of course, at the time, Robert Evans, Bob Evans, he liked the movie. He really liked the movie. He wanted to buy it. And he sent it to New York to have the head of Gulf and Western, which is the company that owned Paramount Pictures at the time, Charles Bluedorn, to watch the movie. And Charles Bluedorn liked it, but his assistant didn't. His assistant did not like the movie at all, and so he kind of convinced Charles Bluedorn to pass on Targets. And then what happened was Peter decided to, he had some friends, and he decided to show the movie at a college, and he invited 2 friends who were journalists to come over, and he told them, look, I mean, if you like the movie, would you be willing to write a positive review on it? But if you don't like the movie, would you be willing to pretend like you never even saw it? I mean, here again, this was Peter Bogdanovich's very first movie as a producer and a director, and he was also the editor of the picture. I mean, they were working with so little money. And the screening went very well. Those 2 positive reviews ended up in the papers in Los Angeles. Robert Evans saw the reviews. He circled them in giant marker, sent them back to Charles Bluedorn and said, look, I think we made a mistake here. I think this kid deserves a chance and we need to distribute this film. So finally, Paramount picked up the movie. Then 2 very tragic events happened. First, in April of 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And then in July, Robert Kennedy, the senator of New York, was assassinated, both within 3 months. And Targets, which of course is about a man who starts murdering his family and starts murdering people on the street and at a drive-in theater with a bunch of guns, there was this loud outcry, and people were complaining about, gun violence in America. And obviously it's still going on today. And so Paramount, half of the people at Paramount thought, well, maybe we should not release this movie at all. Maybe we should just put it on the shelf and sit on it and never release it ever. But the other half at Paramount said, no. How about we release it in limited release? And that's exactly what they did. And so Targets came out on August 15th, 1968, approximately 2 months after Robert Kennedy was shot and killed. Now, even though there were a couple of publications like Roger Ebert didn't love the movie, but he saw good things in it, and he gave it a very average review, and Time magazine gave it an average review. But as outside of those 2, the film got very, very, very good notice, and it launched Peter Bogdanovich's career. Now, this is Tim Kelly, or excuse me, Tim O'Kelly, who just went into this gun shop to purchase this rifle. And what's crazy is that this movie is so patterned on Charles Whitman, but also Peter Bogdanovich decided to make the car that Tim O'Kelly is driving the same car that Yeah, look at all those guns. That is very, very scary. It really is. The same car is basically driven by the man who is said to have assassinated Martin Luther King, although there's also a lot of conspiracy theories regarding the assassination, and that, let's see. Yeah, James Earl Ray. That was the same make and model car that James Earl Ray drove, and also the same rifle which he allegedly used when he shot Martin Luther King at the Lorraine Motel in 1968. So even though this is heavily patterned on Charles Whitman and his mass shooting in 1966 in Texas, Peter Bogdanovich also modeled him a little bit after James Earl Ray. Yeah, see, a Ford Bronco. That's what that's what James Earl Ray was driving when he got out of Memphis. And those oil tankers by Chevron, we're going to be seeing those later when he goes out on the freeway to get to commit all these murders. Now, okay, let me tell everyone right now, because I did seriously think about not doing targets tonight, even though I was originally going to do it last week as a bonus commentary for What's Up, Doc. But look, what happened in Buffalo was, awful, and unfortunately, it's become almost a daily thing in the United States of America, where guns are readily available to almost anyone, even if you have mental health issues, that you can easily buy guns, which is crazy. Unfortunately, the National Rifle Association has pretty much ignored all the mass shootings because, of course, they make tremendous profits from selling weapons. And of course, all screaming about the Second Amendment at the same time. But let me say this right now before we continue going, because this is how important of a movie that I think Targets is. Quentin Tarantino highly praises this movie, and I want to give Quentin Tarantino's exact quote that he gave only a couple years ago about Targets. This is what Quentin Tarantino said, quote, "Targets is the most political movie that Roger Corman has ever made since The Intruder with William Shatner." Now, The Intruder, just real quick, The Intruder is a movie that came out in 1962, starring William Shatner as a bigot who goes to this town and starts racial violence against the black community. 40 years later, this is Quentin Tarantino speaking, 40 years later, Targets is still one of the strongest cries for gun control in American cinema. The film isn't a thriller with a social commentary buried inside of it, the normal Corman model. It's a social commentary with a thriller buried inside of it. It was one of the most powerful films of 1968 and one of the greatest directorial debuts of all time. And I believe it's the best film that has ever been produced by Roger Corman. That's very, very, very high significant praise for Targets. That's exactly what Quentin Tarantino said a couple years ago about this movie. I believe I first saw Targets when it came out on DVD in 2003. And like I said, this DVD, it does include an introduction by Peter Bogdanovich as well as an audio commentary by Peter Bogdanovich, as you can see right there. And I don't know if Paramount is ever going to release this movie on Blu-ray. Something tells me it's going to take another distribution company, maybe even Criterion, to give this movie the Blu-ray release that I think it deserves. And here again, I did seriously question if I was going to do this commentary or not, in light of the very tragic events in Buffalo earlier today. But I also felt, you know what, I have to do this commentary now, without a doubt. And just to let everybody know right now, I want to dedicate this commentary of targets to the victims of that mass shooting in Buffalo. There's 10 victims so far, but unfortunately, there's a lot more injured. And all we know is that somebody drove in out of state, um, a white supremacist, and basically started shooting several members of this of Buffalo in this heavily black community. And unfortunately, this is after Kyle Rittenhouse got let off by the jury, and of course we have conservative talk show hosts like what's his name on Fox News spouting Donald Trump. They're all spouting about this white replacement type theory or whatever and it's just disgusting. I mean, the racism in America is still very much strong and very much alive. It is terrible. It is awful. I mean, there have been so many cop shootings, police shootings, and this, of course, has been going on for decades. I mean, really, with the advent of body cameras, we're actually discovering all of this through actual evidence now. So who knows? But I mean, it is true that the black community has been targeted for many, many decades by the police department. And this is another example of, somebody just grabbing a bunch of guns and just shooting people. And who knows if he's ever going to face a trial and be sentenced to prison. I mean, he may be let off like Kyle Rittenhouse. And what's maybe even more disgusting is that, like Dylan Roof, the police, they might actually take the kid to Burger King afterward. Who knows? And, I hate to be this negative, but look, with this movie, I think it's almost impossible to be almost impossible to not be incendiary. Because, I mean, targets, as Quentin Tarantino said 40 years later, it is more relevant than ever before. And I absolutely agree with him 200% that it is one of the greatest directorial debuts of all time. And yes, Peter Bogdanovich does consider this a horror movie because what he wanted to do was juxtapose the old-fashioned horror that Boris Karloff did in the 1930s to the modern horror of 1968, which includes these shootings where guns are, like I said, absolutely readily available, and people can start shooting up anywhere they please. And of course, the National Rifle Association is all for it because they're making tremendous profits off of selling all these weapons. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I saw Targets early in 1972. It was re-released to capitalize on the Last Picture Show, and the ads actually read, "Another bullseye from Peter Bogdanovich." Wow. Well, please let me know what you thought of it, John, when you saw it in 1972. And actually, oh yeah, please let me know what you thought of it, because when I first saw this movie in 2003, when I bought that DVD, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. And I knew that this was a very, very impressive achievement, despite how shocking it was. Now, see, Tim O'Kelly didn't make a lot of movies after this. He's practically the star of this movie. I mean, technically Boris Karloff is the star, but Tim O'Kelly is the one that basically sets the entire story in motion, and eventually meets up with Boris Karloff at the drive-in theater at the climax of the movie. Now, this shot right here, where he aims the gun at the person, and this is very, very chilling right here. This is actually Laszlo Kovic's hand holding the rifle. Yeah, that's Laszlo Kovic's hand right there, the director of photography that I was talking about earlier in What's Up, Doc? Mm-hmm. Tim O'Kelly did not make a lot of movies after this. In fact, he only did one other film in 1970 called The Grasshopper. And of course, this is his father, who Peter Bogdanovich casted this actor from Howard Hawks films because Peter Bogdanovich, he used to be a critic before he became a director, and he would also do, retrospectives at the Museum of Modern Art on certain directors like Howard Hawks and of course Boris Karloff's pictures. As a matter of fact, we are going to see a movie that Howard Hawks directed Boris Karloff in pretty soon on the television set called the Criminal Code, which is a prison thriller from 1931. Let me go ahead and turn on the subtitles here real quick. But Peter Bogdanovich had the most glowing praise that you would expect from somebody working with Boris Karloff. I mean, Boris Karloff knew all of his lines, and even he came to the set always prepared, always enthusiastic, always willing to do whatever was needed to be done. And Peter Bogdanovich also states that he was a magnificent storyteller. And in fact, there's even an entire sequence in the middle of the movie where Boris Karloff just tells a story, and it's amazing. So amazing that the entire crew burst into applause when the scene was shot, or right after the scene was shot. Yeah, the legendary Boris Karloff. Yeah, he. Let me bring his resume up real quick. Of course, most people know him from Frankenstein, the other film from 1931 that made him a household name, so much that afterward he would get billed as Karloff the Uncanny. But he actually started way back in 1919. So at this point in 1968, he had been on screen for 50 years. He had done film serials in the late teens in the 20th century, like The Lightning Raider and The Masked Rider. And then in the 1920s, he made movies like The Last of the Mohicans, which still exists, by the way. As well as, let's see, are there any other silent films here that, oh yeah, The Eagle of the Sea, Old Ironsides, Two Arabian Nights, directed by Louis Milestone. And then, of course, in 1931, he would be in, oh my God, he did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He did 20 films in 1931, including Frankenstein. Yeah, which is the film that made him a household name and a major star. And in 1932, he would do The Mummy, which is actually my personal favorite of all the Universal monster movies. I actually do prefer The Mummy over Dracula and Frankenstein. Now, Peter Bogdanovich, on his audio commentary for Targets, talks about how this is all one shot, no cuts. There is no cuts whatsoever. Well, actually, there's one. There is one jump cut that he points out, which is actually very difficult to notice. But this was all done in one shot. As you can see, Tim O'Kelly, he follows his wife back to the bedroom. All seamless, one shot. And here again, considering the budget on this movie, which was only $250,000, this is insane. This is an insane achievement right here. Also in 1932, Boris Karloff also made The Old Dark House and The Mask of Fu Manchu, which I actually did a commentary on last year. The Black Cat, 1934, loosely based on the Edgar Allan Poe movie. The Raven, 1935, and he actually does quote the Raven later in the movie. But actually, we'll go back to Boris Karloff because he's not on screen right now, but we'll go back to him later. Let's see. Okay, so the actress here playing, oh no, wait a minute. The actress playing his wife right here is an actress named Tanya Morgan, who didn't really do any other movies. And Peter actually does say on the commentary that he of course, he had a preference for blondes. Of course, later when he hooked up with Sybil Shepherd, but he noted that he always had a preference for blondes, and I think that's what inspired him to cast a blonde in this role. But and the parents are played by James Brown and Mary Jackson, and like Peter said on the commentary, that he cast James Brown because he knew him from a bunch of Howard Hawks movies. Now, the script for this movie, while the script is credited to Peter Bogdanovich, in reality, much of the script was actually courtesy of the filmmaker Samuel Fuller. And Samuel Fuller, and Peter's own character in Targets is actually named Sammy Daniels, and Sammy, of course, being named after Samuel Fuller. He was a filmmaker who had made movies like The Naked Kiss and Shock Corridor and The Big Red One in 1980. But Samuel Fuller said to Peter, "I don't want any credit." And he was very, very generous in giving Peter Bogdanovich full writing credit for Targets. But he was a director, screenwriter, novelist, journalist, and World War II veteran, known for directing low-budget genre movies with controversial themes, often made outside the conventional studio system. And Target certainly goes along with those low-budget genre movies with controversial themes. And Samuel Fuller also knew a lot about guns, which Peter Bogdanovich had no clue. I mean, Peter Bogdanovich said that he knew nothing about guns, but Samuel Fuller himself knew a lot about firearms, and thus he added little tidbits in the script, like the rifle being too hot to handle after Tim O'Kelly starts murdering people on the freeway. I was a kid, so I liked everything, but years later I watched it on the late night movie, and the final moments at the drive-in really impressed me. Pauline Kael dismissed as lame and naive. Well, sorry, Pauline Kael, but you're 100% wrong on this one. Oh, man. I think she is so wrong there. And as a matter of fact, I mean, just to give you an idea what the critical reception was like in 1960, Harold Thompson of the New York Times called Targets an original and brilliant melodrama and concluded that Targets scores an unnerving bullseye. Dave Kerr, the Chicago Reader, called the film an interesting response to the demands of low-budget genre filmmaking, and Variety wrote of the film, aware of the virtue of implied violence, Bogdanovich conveys moments of shock, terror, suspense, and fear. In a retrospective review of the film, Jeff Andrew of Time Out called it a fascinatingly complex commentary on American mythology, exploring the relationship between the inner world of the imagination and the outer world of violence and paranoia, both of which were relevant to contemporary American traumas. I mean, that's the thing. It's really chilling to know that this movie actually came out from a major studio right after Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy both tragically got shot and assassinated. And here again, Peter Bogdanovich refers to this as a horror movie. He mentions that several times on the commentary. Okay, now here is footage of Boris Karloff in The Criminal Code, directed by Howard Hawks. And these are genuine reactions of him watching himself in The Criminal Code and enjoying some alcohol at the same time. Who is that tapping at my chamber door? Yeah, that's an obvious reference to The Raven, written by Edgar Allan Poe. And you know what? I'm actually with Peter Bogdanovich in that I do consider this a horror film. I mean, technically it's a crime thriller, but I do think this is a horror movie because of how much it opens the door to modern horror in 1968, which of course started with Rosemary's Baby and Night of the Living Dead. But I think Targets deserves almost as much credit as those two films, because here again, it is about old-fashioned horror versus modern-day reality horror. And that's what makes it so terrifying is the fact that in the movie, this kid basically has no motive. He just starts murdering his family without notice. He's a deeply disturbed and obsessive gun collector. And aside from being a Vietnam War veteran, that's enough that you can figure that he is, genuinely unbalanced, and that this kid does not need to have guns. He does not need to have guns whatsoever. And of course, Polly Platt was the Peter Bogdanovich's wife at the time, and she served as the production designer on this movie. Originally, the title of the script was "Before I Die," which is typed by Bobby Thompson in his letter that he leaves right after he murders his wife and mother. And Peter didn't like that title. He felt that it was like a movie you had already seen. So it was when he was in Arizona visiting his family with Polly Platt, and they were just on, sitting by the pool, and Polly thought of the idea of a title for Human Targets. And that's how Peter finally came up with just Targets. And that was that turned out to be the perfect title for this movie, because you see several times the crosshairs that Tim Kelly has when he aims the rifles at people. And of course, this was released in August of 1968 in very limited release. But as John just pointed out, it was re-released in 1972 after Peter Bogdanovich became a household name with The Last Picture Show and, of course, What's Up, Doc, which are two very, very different films than Targets. Two very different films. And Peter on the commentary, of course, was very critical of his performance here. I don't think he's that bad. I really don't think he's that bad of an actor. And of course, he's not really the subject of the story here. He's not really the focus of the story. I mean, he kind of needed to play this role out of necessity more than anything else. I mean, it was a very low budget, no extras involved. A lot of the shots at the drive-in theater were actually what he confessed as being test shots that he made prior to shooting to test if the lighting would work after the sun went down and everything. Mr. Boogeyman, King of Blood, they used to call me. Marx Brothers makes you laugh. Garbo makes you weep. Orlok makes you scream. And yeah, Boris Karloff's character in this movie is Byron Orlok, which sounds a little bit like Boris Karloff, essentially. And that's the thing, is that Boris here is essentially playing himself. And even Peter acknowledged that on the commentary. This is very much Boris Karloff. And as you can notice, his health was deteriorating, and both of his legs had braces. And you can tell in many of these scenes that when he's walking around, one of his legs, his left leg, is severely deformed and everything. Some more movies that Boris Karloff made were in 1936, he did The Invisible Ray. 1937, West of Shanghai. And he did hundreds of movies, by the way. I'm not going to name all of them, by the way. He also did Bride of Frankenstein and Son of Frankenstein, of course. Bride of Frankenstein, of course, is now considered the greatest Frankenstein movie of all time, a true classic. He was also in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty with Danny Kaye. Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer Boris Karloff. Now, I talked about that movie during my commentary for The Shaggy Dog because Charles Barton also directed that. And one story that I learned is that, of course, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Boris did not play Frankenstein there. That was Glenn Strange, who had taken over the reins from Boris and Bela Lugosi, who played the monster in Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. These are some great transitions with the lights because we keep going back and forth to what's supposed to be the Beverly Hills Hotel, although they were not allowed to shoot at the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is where Peter and Boris are supposed to be. And then going back to the house where Tim O'Kelly is, smoking cigarettes and this blue on screen. It's very, very chilling. Just very, very chilling. But Boris Karloff was actually so disappointed that he didn't play Frankenstein in the Abbott and Costello movie that he personally requested Universal to put him in another Abbott and Costello movie, and that resulted in Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer Boris Karloff. And it's funny because even though his name is actually in the official title, that may have been a mistake because even though the title on screen, when you see it, it says Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer, and then Costello in animated form comes out and says, "You didn't dot the I," and a knife comes out and gets the eye on there, and then drops of blood fall down like rain and spell the name Boris Karloff. But that might have been just his credit. But for some reason, Boris Karloff's name remains in the actual title. And I'm all for that. I think he deserves it, to be perfectly honest. But he was also in Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He also played Baron Victor von Frankenstein in Frankenstein 1970. And The Raven 1963, The Terror, both films for Roger Corman. He had a cameo in Bikini Beach as an art dealer. And then in 1968, he made his very last movies, and Targets was one of them. Now, some of these movies were released posthumously, obviously, because many of them were just low-budget direct that he made in Mexico, like Curse of the Crimson Altar, Isle of the Snake People, Incredible Invasion, Fear Chamber. All of those movies have, different names over the years. But he always considered this his final movie. In fact, when Peter Bogdanovich invited Boris Karloff and his wife to view a sneak preview in the summer of '68, Boris Karloff was very satisfied with the movie. He was very satisfied with his performance, and he did consider this his last movie. And again, the fade outs and everything, it's very, very chilling stuff. And see, here he types "die" on the typewriter because at the end he actually puts "before I die." Now, brace yourself, everybody, because here is where the murders start, and they are just unrelenting right here. Shoots his wife in the stomach when she's about to kiss him. And then his mother comes in, and he shoots her as well. Oh man! Now Charles Whitman, in actuality, Charles Whitman actually murdered his wife and mother with a knife. In fact, he even plunged the knife into their hearts. Ugh. Like I said, I can't imagine what people in 1968, what their reactions were to this. I mean, this is modern horror, okay? This is no question. This is modern horror right here. And I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, this movie scares me more than anything in Rosemary's Baby. I think Rosemary's Baby is actually quite boring. I mean, well made, but boy, is it boring. And I can't watch any movies nowadays with Mia Farrow, but I'm not going to go down that route. No, I think, yeah, in 1968, I think Rosemary's Baby and Night of the Living Dead and Targets were the three films that ushered in modern horror in American cinema, without question. I mean, this is just, and this is exactly what Charles Whitman did with the bodies of his wife and mother. He put them in their beds and shut their eyes like that. I mean, like I said, a lot of this stuff, a lot of these actions are patterned right after Charles Whitman. Oh, God. I'm going to give everybody a timestamp here, real quick. We are approximately 39 minutes into Targets. 39 minutes. And as you can see, he's covering up the blood stains with these towels and everything. And there's a very bold, ambitious shot that Peter Bogdanovich does here where he moves the camera over what's left in the room. What Bobby actually leaves in the room actually after he murders his wife and mother. Oh, man. You see, here he is putting his mother in the bed now. I mean, this is just a lot of blue. Lots of blue in this house. I mean, he doesn't say on the commentary if the blue is any kind of symbolic choice of color. But look, Polly Platt was the production designer. So, like I said, blue hallways, blue paper towels. What is the significance of the color blue in this house? I will leave anybody and everybody to figure that out on their own and come up with their own conclusions. Oh, God. Yeah, the way he has his arm over his head like that with the bullet in his chest there. Oh, man. Like, no music. I mean, like I said, very chilling, very realistic. This all feels very authentic. And here again, based on a real life mass shooter. Ugh. Oh, how he keeps his foot there in the doorway at the bottom. Oh, man, that is chilling. That is so chilling right there. Yeah, blue paper towels. I mean, I noticed that. I was like, why is everything in this house blue? Because Peter doesn't address that in the commentary. I haven't seen this much blue in a movie since Lindsay Lohan and I Know Who Killed Me. Now, see, yeah, we have this shot right here where we see what he left behind in the house after he left. You see, there you go, the blue towel covering the blood on the carpet. There's another great shot in this movie where Peter Bogdanovich was inspired by North by Northwest. I'll point that out when we get to it. See the slipper right there? Oh, man. Excuse me. Oh. And this is the note that he leaves behind. And Charles Whitman did the same thing. He left a note behind. To whom it may concern, it is now 11:40 a.m. My wife is still asleep, and when she wakes up, I'm going to kill her. Then I'm going to kill my mother. I know they will get me, but there will be more killing before I die. And that's where the original title came from, Before I Die, before it was changed to Targets. And then we go back into the hotel room with Peter Bogdanovich. He was pretending to be drunk earlier. He said that he said he never drank alcohol before he made this movie. So he said he had no idea how to play drunk. And now he's pretending to have a hangover here. But I like that. I like the fact that we cut back to Boris and Peter during these scenes, because it just, you know, you have to take a break from the unrelenting tension of those murders that take place throughout the movie. And we haven't even gotten to the most shocking sequence of the movie yet, which will come when he goes to the Chevron oil towers. Now, the lady right here that is playing Boris Karloff's assistant, her name is Nancy Shue. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name, but she was in Flower Drum Song. She had an uncredited role in Flower Drum Song, but she was also in Cheyenne Autumn, Lieutenant Robin Crusoe, United States Navy, and only a couple other movies. In fact, her last movie was House Calls in 1978, starring Walter Matthau. And very, very sadly, I mean, she was the first Asian American actress to have a leading role in a U.S. television series, which was Love is a Many Splendored Thing in 1967, which was regarded as the first American soap opera to portray an interracial relationship between an Asian woman and a white man. And very, very sadly, she died at the age of 39. She was 39 when she passed away in 1980, and she died of Arthur. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. Arterial sclerosis, in which the wall of the artery develops abnormalities called lesions, and these lesions may lead to narrowing due to the buildup of yeah. I'm not going to go into that, but well, here is the drive-in theater, Reseda Drive-In Theater sign, which is promoting the terror. Now, I have to say real quick, I was actually really hoping during the pandemic that drive-in theaters would make a comeback, because sadly, due to land values, among other things, the drive-in was a staple of the country for 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And then after the 1970s, they started just going away completely. And I've only been to one drive-in my life, and I had the time of my life when I went to that drive-in. I was really hoping drive-ins would make a comeback during the pandemic, but apparently they didn't. Well, I mean, the drive-ins had a lot more business than the regular theaters, that's for sure. But that's the thing about drive-ins. I mean, I wish drive-ins were around where I went to high school, because I mean, think about it. The great thing about drive-ins is that if the movie's boring, you could just make out with your date in the car. Yeah, Peter Bogdanovich was really, really shocked at how easy it was to get guns in America when he made this movie. Now, as you will see, Tim O'Kelly is, of course, eating these Baby Ruth candy bars. I actually like Baby Ruth candy bars, but a lot of people think that Baby Ruth was named after the baseball player Babe Ruth. Actually, that's not true. Actually, it was President Grover Cleveland who named the candy bar in honor of his daughter Ruth. That's one thing that a lot of people actually mistake Baby Ruth candy bars for. They think it's named after Babe Ruth, but no, it was actually Grover Cleveland that invented the candy bar, of all people. And as you can see, there's targets. There's the title right there where you can actually buy the actual targets. But Peter said on the commentary that's not where he got the title from. I mean, as I said earlier, he got the title when he was visiting his family with Polly Platt, and they just thought of the title when they were by the swimming pool one day. The official National Rifle Association targets. I mean, it's crazy to think that, like, I remember back watching Three Stooges shorts on television, and a lot of them still have the NRA logo in front of those shorts. What are you hunting this time? Going to shoot some pigs. That is exactly what Charles Whitman said after he bought all those bullets that he would use in the in his slaughter in Texas. Now, this actor right here, this is Sandy Barron. And I primarily know Sandy Barron from a movie he did in the 1980s called Vamp. I mean, he really didn't do a lot of movies, but he was also in Straight Time, the brilliant Dustin Hoffman movie from 1978, where he plays a convict who gets out after 6 years, and he gets screwed over by a parole officer and goes back to his old career. Very brilliant, underrated film, Straight Time. But Sandy Barron, he was also in The Out of Towners with Jack Lemmon, Broadway Danny Rose with Woody Allen, where he played himself. And he was also in Sid and Nancy, the masterpiece of a movie about Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen, directed by Alex Cox. And his very last movie was actually a Western called The High-Low Country, directed by Stephen Frears and starring Woody Harrelson, Billy Crudup, and Patricia Arquette. But he acted in many television programs, including a recurring role in Seinfeld as Jack Klompus, with the episode The Pen featuring dialogue between Sandy Barron and Jerry that, as a critic wrote, was one of the many reasons Seinfeld has been compared to the plays of Samuel Beckett. And he also starred in Law and Order and took the role of Grandpa in a 1996 TV movie revival of The Munsters, titled The Munsters' Scary Little Christmas. Oh, yes. Now, this is where Peter Bogdanovich gave Boris Karloff this entire scene to actually tell a story. And what he is citing here, Boris Karloff is given a celebrated 100-second single take. This is all a single take performance of W. Somerset Maugham's retelling of the Babylonian fable Appointment in Samara, which was published in 1934, a novel by American writer John O'Hara, and it concerns the self-destruction of the fictional character Julian English, a wealthy car dealer who was once a member of the social elite of Gibbsville, O'Hara's fictionalized version of Pottsville, Pennsylvania. And the book created controversy due to O'Hara's inclusion of sexual content. In fact, in 1998, the Modern Library ranked Appointment in Samara 22nd on its list of the 100 best English language novels of the 20th century. But this retelling is, of course, courtesy of W. Somerset Maugham. And Boris Karloff is just given free rein to tell this story in the middle of the movie. And like I said, when he was finished, the entire crew spontaneously went into applause as soon as Peter Bogdanovich yelled, "Cut." And Death said, "I made a threatening gesture." Oh, yeah, Boris is wonderful here. Just wonderful. A magnificent curtain call to a magnificent career. Absolutely. And then we cut back to Tim O'Kelly, who is going back to those Chevron oil tankers that he passed on before. Now, as I said before, this sequence, when I first saw it, when I bought this DVD and I first saw this sequence, I was shocked. I mean, I was shocked beyond words could stipulate. Because what he does here is that he gets all these guns out of the trunk of the car, and he's going to go up on these towers and just start shooting people on the freeway. And Peter Bogdanovich noted that all of this, every single inch of this footage, was shot illegally. You are not allowed to shoot on the freeway. You are not allowed to shoot at the freeway. And all of this was done illegally because the Roger Corman School of Filmmaking says, well, we don't follow by the rules. You just go out there and get your shots. And that's exactly what Peter Bogdanovich did. I mean, just when he gets up there and he starts laying out all the weapons, and then he gets out the sandwich and the Dr. Pepper. I mean, oh God. And Charles Whitman, I mean, he did not get a sandwich and Dr. Pepper, but in fact, he did get a can of Spam, and he supposedly ate that when he started shooting people at the university in Texas. Mm. And like I said, if you weren't convinced before that this was a horror movie, this sequence should convince you without a doubt that this is a horror movie. Just start shooting people randomly on the freeway. I mean, my God. Excuse me just real quick. So like I said, we are approximately 55 minutes in. We're approximately 55 minutes into targets, and we're coming up on the most shocking sequence in the movie. I think during this sequence, I think I'm going to give a little bit more information about Charles Whitman. On August 1st, 1966, Charles Whitman used knives to kill his mother and wife in their respective homes, then went to the University of Texas at Austin with multiple firearms and began indiscriminately shooting at people. He fatally shot 3 people inside the main building. Then he accessed the 28th floor observation deck on the building's clock tower. There he fired at random people for 96 minutes, killing an additional 11 people and wounding 31 others before he was shot dead by Austin police officers. In the day before the shootings, Whitman bought a pair of binoculars and a knife from a hardware store and some Spam from a 7-Eleven convenience store. He picked up his wife from her summer job as a telephone operator before he met his mother for lunch at the Wyatt Cafeteria, which was close to the UT Austin campus. About 4 p.m. the same day, Whitman and his wife visited their close friends, John and Fran Morgan. They left the Morgans' apartment at 5:50 p.m. so Kathy could get her 6 to 10 p.m. shift. At 6:45 p.m., Whitman began typing his suicide note, a portion of which read, "I do not quite understand what it is that compels me to type this letter. Perhaps it is to leave some vague reason for the actions I have recently performed. I do not really understand myself these days. I am supposed to be an average, reasonable, and intelligent young man. However, lately, I cannot recall when it started. I have been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts. These thoughts constantly recur, and it requires a tremendous mental effort to concentrate on useful and progressive tasks." In his note, Whitman went on to request an autopsy be performed on his remains after he was dead to determine if there had been a discernible biological contributory cause for his actions and for his continuing and increasingly intense headaches. He also wrote that he decided to kill both his mother and wife. Expressing uncertainty about his reasons, he nonetheless stated he did not believe his mother had ever enjoyed life as she is entitled to, and that his wife had been, quote, "as fine a wife to me as any man could ever hope to have." Whitman further explained that he wanted to relieve both his wife and mother of the suffering of this world and to save them from the embarrassment of his actions. He did not mention planning the attack at the university. Just after midnight on August 1st, Whitman drove to his mother's apartment at 1212 Guadalupe Street. After killing his mother, he placed her body on her bed and covered it with sheets, as mentioned before. How he murdered his mother is disputed, but officials believed he rendered her unconscious before stabbing her in the heart. He left a handwritten note beside her body, which read in part, "To whom it may concern, I have just taken my mother's life. I am very upset over having done it. However, I feel that if there is a heaven, she is definitely there now. I am truly sorry. Let there be no doubt in your mind that I love this woman with all my heart." Whitman then returned to his home at 906 Jewel Street, where he killed his wife by stabbing her 5 times in the chest as she slept. He covered her body with sheets, then resumed the typewritten note he had begun the previous evening. Using a ballpoint pen, he wrote at the side of the page, "Friends interrupted, 8/1/66, Monday 3 a.m., both dead." Whitman continued the note, finishing it by pen. "I imagine it appears that I brutally killed both of my loved ones. I was only trying to do a quick, thorough job. If my life insurance policy is valid, please pay off my debts. Donate the rest anonymously to the Mental Health Foundation. Maybe research can prevent further tragedies of this type. Give our dog to my in-laws. Tell them Kathy loved Scotchy very much. If you can find in yourselves to grant my last wish, cremate me after the autopsy." Whitman also left instructions in the rented house requesting that 2 rolls of camera film be developed and wrote personal notes to each of his brothers. He last wrote on an envelope labeled "Thoughts of the Day," in which he stored a collection of written admonitions. He added on the outside of the envelope, August 1st, 1966, I never could quite make it. These thoughts are just too much for me now." Now, one of the extras in the cars driving on the freeway, here again, all shot illegally, was actually the son of David O. Selznick, who produced Gone with the Wind, and of course Rebecca, which is the Alfred Hitchcock film that won Best Picture in 1940. Now that that cop on the motorcycle, that was not planned. That was an actual cop on the freeway, and they just recorded the noises coming from the police cruiser as they were going down the highway. And here's Tim O'Kelly making his escape right now, leaving all those guns up there on the tower. And it's this shot right here that Peter Bogdanovich was inspired by Cary Grant leaving the UN building in North by Northwest. That very high shot coming from the sky. That's where he got the idea for this particular shot from. At 5:45 a.m. on August 1st, 1966, Whitman phoned his wife's supervisor at Bell System to explain that Kathy was ill and unable to work that day. He made a similar phone call to his mother's workplace 5 hours later. Whitman's final journal entries were written in the past tense, suggesting he had already killed his wife and mother. And here he is making his escape, and we have this a little very exciting chase going through the streets here. Here again, all of this was done illegally. I mean, that Roger Corman era of filmmaking, they didn't care. They just went out and shot it. And finally, at approximately 11:35 a.m., Whitman arrived at the UT Austin campus. He falsely identified himself as a research assistant and told the security guard he was there to deliver equipment. He then climbed to the 28th floor of the main building's clock tower, killing 3 people within the tower, and opened fire from the observation deck with a hunting rifle and other weapons. Altogether, Whitman killed 14 people and wounded 31. In the 96 minutes before he was shot and killed by Sergeant Ramiro Martinez and Patrolman Houston McCoy of the Austin Police Department. They had raced to the top of the tower to stop Whitman. And here he is arriving at the drive-in theater. Now, just one moment here. Okay. And there will be some familiar faces coming up here during the drive-in sequence. Right here is Frank Marshall, who, of course, was the assistant to the producer. He had worked on What's Up, Doc? And, of course, later he would work with Steven Spielberg on films like Raiders of the Lost Ark and everything. That is indeed the legendary Frank Marshall. He also directed Arachnophobia and Congo. He also worked with Bogdanovich on Paper Moon and At Long Last Love and Nickelodeon before he started working with Spielberg. And we're going to see Frank Marshall several more times as the ticket boy. But he worked with Spielberg on Raiders of the Lost Ark, Poltergeist, The Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, Always, Hook. And of course, he was the one that brought Peter Bogdanovich on board to direct Noises Off in 1992, which is my favorite Peter Bogdanovich movie. And he is still in the business. Obviously, he's the producer of Indiana Jones 5, which will finally come out next year. So he's not retired yet, and his wife Kathleen Kennedy certainly isn't retired yet either. But yeah, Frank Marshall was a longtime friend and colleague of Peter Bogdanovich. Oh, I love these scenes at the drive-in. I mean, with the sun already set. Oh, those are gorgeous right there. Those are magic hour shots right there. And here again, a lot of blue. I mean, there's a lot of blue in this movie. It's crazy. I mean, here again, I'm not even going to pretend that there's some symbolic meaning behind the color blue in all these scenes, but certainly works. Look at that. He's still eating his sandwich. Oh my God, that he took from the tower after he shot all those people on the freeway. And of course, this particular drive-in is, of course, showing The Terror, which, of course, will make perfect sense because Byron Orlock is coming to attend this showing of The Terror. Now, here's a crazy connection here, but the projectionist that shows The Terror to this audience, his name was actually Byron. So he actually had the same in real life. His name was actually Byron. He had the same name as Boris Karloff's character. And we are approximately 1 hour and 7 minutes into targets. 1 hour and 7 minutes, and we got 23 minutes left to go. Yeah, here is the projectionist who was the real projectionist at this drive-in theater, and yes, his name was Byron. I want to go to a drive-in now, man. I want to go there, get some hot dogs, get some nachos. Oh man, it would be so much fun to see some movies at the drive-in. I don't have a car, unfortunately. I live in New York City. I don't need a car. That is also Frank Marshall right there. And that's actually Polly Platt's wife. I mean, excuse me. That's actually Polly Platt who just grabbed the speaker. And we saw her very, very briefly. I mean, she actually walked by Tim O'Kelly's car right after he got out. And at that point, she was actually pregnant with Peter's son. And yeah, as he said on the commentary, these are mostly test shots, but man, do they work beautifully. They really do. Yeah, I really do love this drive-in sequence, despite the grim violence that's all over the place. So start the movie at 8 p.m. Is Byron Arlock here? No, Orlock, son. Orlock. He's probably here. Yeah. Oh, these shots are just great. Oh, even if they are test shots, I don't care. They look spectacular. Now, I would say there's another familiar face coming up here, but in reality, we do not see his face. But we'll point him out when we get to him. Yeah, this movie, I still think it holds up. I mean, it's still chilling after all these years. It really is. Oh, now these are Frank Marshall's parents. Those are Frank Marshall's parents, and I believe Peter even noted that Frank Marshall's girlfriend at the time was in one of these cars. I mean, oh, there's Jack Nicholson again. Jack Nicholson and footage from The Terror. Yeah, I don't know what Frank Marshall would think about Peter Peter Bogdanovich pointing out his old girlfriend, considering he's been married to Kathleen Kennedy for like the past 40 years. Jack Nicholson is permit me to introduce myself, Baron Hector Ver. I got to check out The Terror sometime. I mean, I heard it's entertaining, colorful schlock. But then again, I mean, I've seen lots of Roger Corman's films, but I don't think I've seen The Terror. I've seen most of his Edgar Allan Poe adaptations too, and that's another thing. Like Mel Brooks, which I mentioned earlier, Roger Corman is still with us. He was born in 1926, and he's currently 96 years old. 96 years old. Not really producing films anymore, but yeah, according to Quentin Tarantino, this is the without doubt the best movie that Roger Corman has ever produced. I'm not sure if I would agree with that sentiment, but I mean, yeah, I mean, this is definitely in the top five, most definitely in the top five. And yeah, there's Tim O'Kelly aiming the rifle at the cars, about to take some other victims here, very tragically. Oh, with the fire on the screen there. Oh man, these shots are amazing. They really are. He still hasn't gotten to the drive-in theater yet, even though the movie's already started. Roger Corman, he produced a movie in September of 1958 called Night of the Blood Beast. It's a pretty bad movie. It was showcased on Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's actually one of my favorite episodes. There's actually a couple in one of the cars here where, um, they're just kissing pretty much the entire time. And Peter said he had difficulty with them because they just wanted to keep on kissing. They wouldn't stop kissing in the car, even though they forgot they were shooting a movie together. Mm. I'm not going to lie. I really wish I had gone to drive-ins back in the 60s and 70s because, oh man, so much fun. And like I said, that's the car that oh yeah, there's the crosshairs again. Oh man. Okay, the gentleman going into the telephone booth. This is the other guy I wanted to talk about real quick. That is actually Mike Farrell, and Mike Farrell was evidently, yeah, he just shot the guy in the phone booth. Yeah, Mike Farrell played Captain B.J. Honeycutt on the television series MASH for not the entire, not every season, but he was in like 7 episodes of MASH as Captain B.J. Honeycutt. And we don't really see his face, but Peter promises that is in fact Mike Farrell that gets shot in the phone booth. Mm. They made Whitman's story into a TV movie starring Kurt Russell recently off the Disney Picks in 1974. The police officer who took him down said the film wasn't accurate and asked his name to be changed. Oh, wow. Wow. So I guess yeah, you could argue that this movie was actually more accurate when it came to Whitman's story. Oh man. Hmm. But yeah, that was Mike Farrell that got shot in the telephone booth, and he's going to be crawling out of there pretty soon. And here again, I just want to make it clear right now that what happened in Buffalo, New York, is so awful and so sad, and that's why I wanted to dedicate this commentary to all the victims of the shooting that happened. I mean, without getting too political, I mean, the thing is, I do think that we do require some kind of gun control in this country, and it's really sad that many extremist groups, like to hide behind the Second Amendment, which, do, we should at least have restrictions on those with mental deficiencies to not buy these type of weapons. But here again, the NRA, they love those profits. They don't care who dies. They don't care. They don't care. They're just trying to make money, and it's just really sad that all these people have to die due to all these terrorist acts. It's just amazing that this country, we still have a massive issue with gun violence, a massive issue. And when is it going to be corrected? I don't know. I mean, when we have a Congress that is bought off by corporations, and they only care about their owner donors, I mean, not much change is going to happen. But yeah, that's Mike Farrell crawling out from the phone booth, dying right here. Samuel Fuller, the screenwriter of Targets, the uncredited screenwriter, he did ask Peter Bogdanovich, "Does Boris Karloff wear a tuxedo in The Terror?" And Peter said yes, and Samuel Fuller said perfect, because when Tim O'Kelly eventually meets Byron Orlock, obviously he's also wearing a tuxedo, and it matches what's on the screen there. Oh, no, 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 no. Don't shoot the projectionist. Oh, man. Right in the head. Oh. Oh, man. And like I said, those are Frank Marshall's parents. Yeah, a lot of family and friends helped out on this movie. I mean, they didn't have any money for extras. They really, I mean, like I said, I mean, and Roger Corman, he told Peter Bogdanovich, "Hey, you think you can sell it to a studio? Go ahead. I mean, as long as I get my money back." Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. There's a sniper at the drive-in. Oh man. And even though it looks like there's many, many cars at this theater, I mean, reality, I mean, I mean, there's really not a lot of cars. I mean, you think there's a lot of cars, but there's not. I mean, here again, it's all trickery on the part of cinematographer Laszlo Kovacs and Peter Bogdanovich. So as for Peter Bogdanovich, I mean, one thing. Okay, I know that we already did What's Up, Doc. There was one thing I forgot to mention during that commentary that I'll mention right here. For anybody out there who are fans of Peter Bogdanovich and his work, you should seek out a 1984 film called Irreconcilable Differences, which stars Ryan O'Neal, who is essentially playing a version of Peter Bogdanovich, and Shelley Long is playing a version of Polly Platt. There's Frank Marshall again, and basically it mirrors the story of Peter Bogdanovich and Polly Platt when they went to Hollywood, and Peter Bogdanovich fell in love with Sybil Shepherd during the making of The Last Picture Show. And in Irreconcilable Differences, the actress playing in the Sybil Shepherd role was none other than Sharon Stone, of all people. Yeah, this is Frank Marshall. And Peter Bogdanovich actually said on the commentary that he wasn't pleased with his performance here. So he just kept cutting to Frank Marshall to carry the scene as the ticket boy. He just didn't like his performance here. But with Irreconcilable Differences, which was made about 10 years after Peter and Polly divorced, Polly Platt said, you know what? They got it more right than wrong. They definitely got it more right than wrong. But unfortunately, Irreconcilable Differences suffered from horrible distribution. Um, I'm almost speculating that somebody at the studio kind of ruined the film's chances and kind of buried it, and so it ended up in the hands of third-rate distribution companies when it was released on VHS. But if you're a Peter Bogdanovich fan, you definitely need to check out Irreconcilable Differences. Yes, you're absolutely right, John. Yes, excellent film, but advertised as a family comedy set in Hollywood. Yeah, hardly. It was hardly a family comedy. Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, very underrated movie, and definitely one of Drew Barrymore's best performances. Oh my God. I mean, Ryan O'Neal and Shelley Long are great in it. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I mean, Drew Barrymore is really the standout in that movie. Very underrated. Very underrated. You know what? When I think of movies that have sequences set at drive-in theaters, this is the first one I think of. This is without a doubt the first one I think of. Oh, and the guy you just saw with the hat that runs up and sees Byron dead, he was later a producer of the Sybil television series in the 1990s. And when Peter Bogdan, this guy right here with the hat on, when he discovers the dead projectionist named Byron, Peter Bogdanovich met him years and years later and said, "You know what? You look familiar." And he said, "Oh yeah, I was in Targets. I played the guy that discovered the body." And he's like, "Oh man." Yep. I mean, it's amazing in the film world where everybody knows everybody. Mm. And we have approximately 7 minutes left to go for targets. Yep. So at any rate, I mean, rest in peace, Peter Bogdanovich. And like I said, I mean, very tragic about what happened in Buffalo. I mean, all those victims of a horrible racist terrorist. I mean, we seriously need to do something about gun laws and gun violence in this country because it's gotten so out of control. I mean, we need some kind of gun control. And I'm not speaking from a place of like liberal politics or anything because I'm apolitical. I'm just saying we need gun control. We need some kind of gun control because there's absolutely no reason in the world why guns should be this readily available. I mean, you can get them at Walmart for God's sake. I mean, I think that's where the Columbine murderers got their guns. That was just at Walmart. I mean, it's very scary how easily guns are obtainable. And Peter Bogdanovich knew that. And he emphasized that in this film, almost as a warning. And it's a warning that, without a doubt, resonates over 40 years later. And I really wish, somebody like Criterion. I mean, even if it's not Paramount, but I'm hoping that somebody like Criterion actually has the balls to put this out on Blu-ray and 4K and everything, because especially with Peter Bogdanovich's recent passing and with Quentin Tarantino's endorsement, it seems like it should have gotten a release by now. But just one second. Well, at any rate, I want to thank everybody for spending time with me tonight. John and MLB fan 122, Rob Gasper, Katrina, wonderful to see you as always. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut off this stream as soon as I'm finished with targets. But I will say that my next two commentaries will be next Saturday night, and it will also be another dedication to one more filmmaker who passed away earlier this year by the name of Douglas Trumbull. Even though he is most famous for the special effects that he provided for 2001: A Space Odyssey, as well as Star Trek: The Motion Picture, next Saturday night I will be doing the two films that he directed, including Silent Running. I just recently purchased this Arrow Blu-ray, and I saw it for the first time and was blown away by it. And I can't wait to talk about it next Saturday night. But I will also do, as a second commentary, I will also do his second and only other film called Brainstorm, starring Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood. That will be next Saturday night. That will be next Saturday night on the 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern. I will do commentary for Silent Running as well as Brainstorm, both directed by Douglas Trumbull. And finally, last but not least, on the 27th of May, I will also do an audio commentary for An Officer and a Gentleman, starring Richard Gere, Deborah Winger, and Academy Award winner Louis Gossett Jr. And on that day, Friday, May 27th, not only is Top Gun Maverick opening up on that day, but it will also be Louis Gossett Jr.'s birthday. So it's going to be a very special day. I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite movies of all time, An Officer and a Gentleman. So hope to see you for both of those. The 21st, Silent Running and Brainstorm, and finally on Friday the 27th, An Officer and a Gentleman. And those will be the only other commentaries that I do for the rest of May, because I think I've done over 10 commentaries now this month. And here Bobby, played by Tim O'Kelly, finally gets arrested. And that ends the nightmare. At least in this movie, it ends the nightmare. But there's a wonderful, wonderful final shot, which Laszlo Kovacs and Peter Bogdanovich did themselves when they went back to the drive-in theater after they had shot all this. and they wanted to get one more shot of the theater when it was completely void of cars except for one, which is, of course, the car that Tim O'Kelly was driving, based on the car that I keep forgetting his name. But we're coming up here on the final shot here. Yeah, see, there you go. The Ford Bronco that Tim O'Kelly was driving earlier in the movie. Of course, that's the exact same car that the supposedly the that James Earl Ray was driving when right after he murdered Martin Luther King Jr. Although I don't believe that he in fact murdered him, because I don't believe that he was able to get out of the country without help. I believe that somebody else was responsible for murdering. But as you can see, there's a cloud covering the drive-in, and they ran out of film, so they weren't able to get the entire cloud covering the drive-in, but they got enough of it. And Lazo Kovacs told Peter Bogdanovich, right when he was finishing this movie, it's good enough. We can make it work. And they absolutely made it work. So that is the 1968 film Targets. And like I said, we'll see you next Saturday night for Silent Running and Brainstorm, and also Friday, May 27th for An Officer and a Gentleman. You all have a great evening.